banks took the homesteads. These are people that their grandparents owned the land and they themselves became sharecroppers. And so that's
Well, I know there was a lot of that, but there's as of the early up into the early 70s in the daily newspaper from time to time. I mean, every year or two there could be an article about how the source was a banker from that region saying that a lot of those people could have paid their mortgages back. He was still saying it.
No, they could not. They had to go to California. All right, listen.
A lot of them did. Yeah, most of them in a big way, and it was terrible. I know, but there's just more to that. It's another misstatement of the Republican rural country, and it's still going on. I mean, I live here in Denver, but I'm from the farm country, big time.
Never heard that, but.
Well, I'm not big time, but I mean, it's firmly. We still have our interests in farming, and there's problems today with the way the federal government relates to it all.
All right, you're jumping ahead of me. Okay, man. Thanks for your time.
Well, I don't know. Thank you.
All right, thank you. 710 KNUS. Good morning, everybody. Thank you. No, that isn't how it worked. The banks foreclosed, and the people had to leave, and they went to California, and they became the Okies, and they were also the Arkies from Arkansas, and the Okies came from Oklahoma. All right, for another morning, 303-696-1971. What I would like to talk about, if you would please, 303-696-1971, United States stocks see the biggest two-day wipeout in history as the market loses $11 trillion since Donald Trump's inauguration. Stocks in the last couple of days, Thursday and Friday, 6.6 trillion has been lost. I want to get people's thoughts because if this is going to work, and I've listened to a lot of nonsense on radio shows, which is nothing new anymore anyhow, but we have to go back in time, as you always do. You have to return to history for your lessons. And how do people feel about their losses? Serious question. How much do you think you've lost? And again, you haven't lost until you sold, but nevertheless, you can look at paper. But we'll take calls in here, but what's important is the rise of the multinational corporation. They took the jobs out of this country. I mean, after the Second World War, the number of businesses having a foreign country operation rose drastically. And then, of course, the means of production get stripped. If Trump is doing this right, this is the way to force it back. But in the meantime, the losses are incredible. Your thoughts on your losses. The multinational corporations, when I've talked about multinational corporations for probably 25, 30 years on the radio, but they are the cause of so many problems in this country. They control foreign policy. They get this nation into war. Don't kid yourself about any of the wars in the Middle East. They're all the multinationals. They're the corporations, the oil corporations. So now we're at this point where the multinational corporations are the center of much of the problems in this country. Trump knows it. I sure hope, and I'm sure he does. But if you look at what is happening now, and it's really tariffs. And the third world, where the multinationals took the means of production, they got away with whatever they wanted to get away with. And sometimes they call them transnationals. You hear that term used. Multinational corporations, stateless corporations, another way. I got ready all week to come in and do this. They call TNCs, international corporations. The history of the multinational begins with colonialism. The first multinational corporations set up colonial factories or port cities. The main examples, the British East India Company, the Dutch East India Company. in addition to trade between Great Britain and the colonies. The Dutch government took over the Hudson. There was the Hudson Bay Company, the Swedish Africa Company. These are all multinational corporations. 1945, the United States was the world's largest oil producer. 1945. However, the reserves in this country were declining due to high demand. Therefore, the United States turned to foreign oil sources. And these are the incredible impact on the recovery of the West after the Second World War. Most of the world's oil now comes from Latin America and the Middle East, particularly in the Arab states of the Persian Gulf. So at that one moment, there's Anglo-Iranian oil, Royal Dutch Shell, Standard Oil of California, Gulf Oil, Texaco, Standard Oil of New Jersey, later becomes Esso, then it becomes Exxon, then it becomes ExxonMobil, and then it was Standard Oil of New York. They ran the foreign policy of this country. Let's take a break. 303-696-1971. Do you get it back? I don't know. Worldwide oil consumption, the golden age of oil. Stay right here. The multinational, how much money have you lost in the market? 303-696-1971. Morning, everybody. 710 KNUS Denver's Talk Station on a Saturday. I'm Peter Boyles, clearing skies and 45, 58 Sunday, Monday, 66 degrees. We'll go to the phones in just a second. The point I was trying to make is the stock market is predicated on an awful lot of what the multinationals are doing. Donald Trump sees that, I hope, and realizes if you're ever going to bring jobs back to this country, these people, the multinational corporations, they fly no flag, they have no allegiance, and they were able, through contributions to politicians doing things outside the box, to having their taxes lowered, having your taxes support them. And the mining of gold and silver and oil is a major activity early on in the rise of the multinational, the oil companies. But then the multinationals decide, gee, we can take the means of production, the steel mill that I worked in as a young man, take it abroad. Make sure it's in some other part of the world where we don't have to pay taxes, where we have no payments for goods and services. We're not responsible. We can do what we want to do. Low human rights, environmental standards. In a world economy facilitated by the multinationals, capital will increasingly be able to play the workers and the communities and the nations off against one another. And so now there are so many great books, Storms over the multinationals, Sovereignty at Bay. There is no tax justice network to criticize governments for allowing this to happen. So if Trump's right, and you have to bring the means of production, as the economists call it, bring the means of production back to the country, it's going to be tough. Oh, and it might fail. Let's go here. Here we go. This is Peggy. Peggy. Hi, Peggy.
Hello?
Peggy,
Yes.
We're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning. I would say I am down 7% in the last 2 days for my stocks. I'm not worried about it. I'm not in it for short term. I'm in it for the long term. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are, they're doing the little Robin Hood thing, or these are little short term, not truly investors, not true investors. And
can I ask you a question? Would there be a point? Would there be a point that you would be worried?
Maybe 9 months from now.
Okay.
Yeah, 9 to 12 months from now, but not now. It's I'm in it for the long term.
Right.
If I wanted to be in it for the short term, I'd go up the hill to Blackhawk or buy lottery tickets.
What I see this is something that needs to be done. The United States was, in essence, beginning in 1945, after the end of the Second World War, where basically the entire known world is devastated. We are the only ones standing. When there was Dunbarton Oaks, there was a couple of big get-togethers, and the American dollar was going to be what everything was going to turn on. And then the Marshall Plan began, and all the different things we've talked about. But out of that, and these companies, they're quasi-governments in their own right. And so the steel mills go abroad, the forges go abroad, the multinational automobile people are allowed into this country at a very low rate. The motorcycle business, something that I read about. If you look at what Harley Davidsons cost, if you take a big Harley, or any Harley for that matter, but take it to Japan and sell it, or take it to Europe and sell it, and compare that to what a Kawasaki or a Honda will be sold for in this country, it's amazing. And who gets away with stuff. And so we're at this make-break moment, and the multinational corporation in this country should be the center of a heated debate. I've talked about multinationals on the air forever, and Usually I'm told to go up a rope, but it is the middle of this. And they have opened manufacturing facilities. They bring these products back to this country. I've often told the story of the snow shovel. And when the Waltons, who now own your Denver Broncos, they went to China, and these are the multinational business organizations, and they made snow shovels. There used to be a company in Indiana where men were in a union. They made snow shovels. They had health care. They got a decent wage. And suddenly they started making the snow shovels in China. Well, I listened to people on radio shows. That's great for you, man. You can get a snow shovel for half the price. Now, you know what? You pay more for the snow shovel. But now, where the profit goes back to the PRC, but actually it goes to the multinational. And so it's done with cars, it's done with clothing, it's done with you fill in the blank. And you're told all the time, oh, you're getting a great deal. Shut up, Peter. You don't know what you're talking about. I said, no, there's going to come a time. Yep. And the time is now.
Yeah, it's like a reset or a reconciliation. And the one thing that happened also since World War II that is very noteworthy that plays into this is going away from securing with gold.
Yes.
I really wish our country would go back to that. It would really help our economy and in a variety of ways.
Well, remember this. Put this in to remember. Corporations that are multinationals, they're stateless. They are transnationals, sometimes they're called. They're synonymous with multinationals, but in 92, a corporation must, they don't domicile. They're measured. You don't even know ownerships or control or workforces or sales or regulate or taxation. Multinationals are, when they were allowed, and they were, and multinationals have their roots hundreds of years ago. And you keep, as someone is texting, then they're right. It's a lot cheaper made in America if we keep our military home. The military goes abroad to protect American corporate interest. I truly believe that.
Yep.
And the wars that this country has fought in my lifetime principally have been wars for the multinational.
Yeah. I would recommend to everyone that what I see is people have their 401k or 403b, whatever they have, and it goes into stock, and then they sign off. And they're like, well, it's, I've done my thing at work. I've signed up for this thing. I'm contributing. And then they have no clue where their money is being invested.
Agreed.
And it's going to, if you don't decide which packet groups it goes into, it will be decided for you.
Do you believe this?
And it will be decided for you by one of those conglomerates. And it may be things that we're not politically interested in.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because they fly no flag. Do you believe that the multinational corporations control American foreign policy?
I think they have a very strong hand in it, yes.
All right. And so when the guys that I grew up with lost their jobs in the mills, and who took those jobs? It was the same corporations, U.S. Steel. Oh, some guy in Beijing, some guy in Shanghai.
Right. Yep, it went overseas.
Yeah.
And it's very important to bring those. It's very important to bring jobs back and solidify the dollar.
That's right.
I've had the great privilege of living overseas, and including Taiwan, which is a major manufacturing. And I wish that everybody could have the opportunity to, get outside of their area, if not international, and go see how the rest of the world works, and then they'd have a better picture and evaluation of the United States, and you'd see our shortcomings. You'd vote more often.
You take care. Good opening call. Thank you, Peggy. Thank you. The line's open. This is Don. Don, you're on a radio show. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Peter. I do remember that show that got hijacked 10 years ago.
Thank you.
that was pretty comical, actually. It sucked me in. I'm going, what the hell's happening now? What did Boyles do?
What have you done now?
Yeah, another station, another job.
That's another gig. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's well said.
In the stock market, there's a few views I have on it. One, they've put some stuff on sale, and people ought to be thinking about, maybe there's time now I ought to think about getting into some things. There might be some good values out there. Two, how many people in this country are vested in the stock market that is going to affect them? Yeah, but how many? 20%? 25%?
I don't know a number, but if you're in a plan, a retirement plan, if you're in all kinds of different things, you're in the market.
Okay.
And
how many people did the last 4 years of this administration affect?
Actually, the market went up.
But
the market went up.
But how many people were affected by groceries?
Oh yeah, I mean it was inflation and the market. No, you're right. I mean,
and
look,
my point is, if you're going to look at this market, anybody that's ever been in market or mutual funds, things like that, if you're in for the short term, it's kind of foolish.
No defense aside, this is a huge drop, but is it dropping to eventually rebound and come back and be stronger? I mean, the stock market is well. One thing but one thing to say, and is that the stock market doesn't have to do anything, but the stock market, the 2-day wipeout, $11 trillion since Inauguration Day, 6.6 in the last 2 days. We can do what we want to do, but it's a lot of dough. Where'd it go?
So how much of a percentage is that? And what is the typical percentage when they have their quote unquote market correction?
I don't know.
They talk about that, and the things that I've read is if we have this is heading towards what would be considered a correction. Well, you know what? Maybe it's a good time that we have a correction.
What I'm saying to you is the multinational tax havens, the tax avoidance schemes, the medium-sized enterprise schemes. These people allowing multinational corporations to escape tax, particularly by using that's called base erosion, profit shifting, tax tools. Is it going to be what must be done? Does this need to be done regardless of the pain? Does it need to be done?
Do we need to subsidize farmers and oil companies and
all of it?
All the other stuff.
Yeah, sure.
I think what we're seeing here is a grand play by the first person in maybe forever that is just going to move on. He's had plenty of time to think about it. I think he's got good people surrounding him, and there's going to be some pain.
Remember,
but how big a pain? We need to get this country back producing.
Well, the point of this the point of all of this is exactly, does this need to happen to this country before it slides as far as it was predicted to slide? And so that's one of my questions, but you can't negate the tremendous loss, and at the same time, as a longtime critic of multinational corporations and what they're able to do, don't kid yourself. When Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, do you think that the United States of America went to war with 1 million troops and all the equipment because they wanted the dignity and the freedom of the people of Kuwait?
Absolutely not.
You have a good day. Thank you. All right. We're at this moment now on the U.S. stocks, the biggest two-day wipeout in history. The market loses $11 trillion. In the last 2 days, $6.6 trillion. And why? This is something that I've talked about on radio shows for I don't know how many years. It's going to be 45 for a high, 58 on Sunday. All the guys are here. Tancredo's here. Dick Wadhams is here. And then the classic April Fool's joke that we did here on 710 KNUS. Here we go. 9:44. Johnny Cash. 710 KNUS. 45 the high today. 58 on Sunday. Monday 66. Yesterday, for the first time in almost 30 years, Fox removed the market ticker showing the economic fallout in real time. Fox says this texter is not journalism, it is state-run propaganda. Yesterday, for the first time in almost 30 years, Fox removes the market ticker. Good morning, everyone. We are talking to people about their reactions to what has happened to their stock portfolios in 710 KNUS. Here we go. James, you're on the radio show. Thanks, and good morning.
Good morning, Peter. I'm 62 years old, and there was a time back in the late 70s, early 80s, when China and Japan started bringing stuff over here, that if you bought a car from Japan, you were frowned upon because it was always buy American.
Yes.
And now we've been kind of lulled to sleep like a drug addict would be on heroin. Now we're talking 40, 50 years later, we're hooked on this cheap stuff from Walmart. There's nothing in Walmart that's made in America. Nothing.
Well, if you go into any of these places, and that was the point of the multinational. Then the multinational gets tax avoidance schemes, gets multinational tax havens. Multinational corporations gain competitive advantage over small and business enterprises, i.e. the snow shovel organizations who criticize multinational organizations. They oftentimes get turned on themselves. The last question I asked the last caller, when Saddam invades Kuwait and George Bush sends there was a million GIs were sent there. Do you think that was done for the democratic peoples of Kuwait?
Oh no.
Who was
it?
No,
it's corporations.
Sure.
And the sad thing about it is, the Walmart organization. Let's say they really wanted to do something for America, and the president comes out and the owner says, "You know what? We're going to work with Donald Trump, and we're going to start buying stuff and selling stuff that's made in America." Now, if these people are on board with what we're doing here, all these companies will do that. This is a really hard time.
You have to force, and again, force people is almost exactly what we're watching happen. People only change in pain.
Right.
And they don't change when things are good. And as long as you're told things are good and everything is good, and now this begins with, the Dow ticker or whatever it is. And like I said, I'm not the greatest Donald Trump fan in the world, but did this need to happen?
It did.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a quick question. So let's say he brought it down. He knew what he started this process now. Let's say he didn't. Okay, and
that's worse.
5 years goes by, and we are $41 trillion in debt.
Absolutely.
And everybody around us, all these other countries, say, "You know what? We're pulling the plug on you. What you going to do?"
Well, what we become. All empires fail, and what we become is the British Empire. We become what's happened to Great Britain.
Can you believe that?
That will happen to this country. Oh, it's inevitable
if we don't stop it now.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. And so when I look at this, and I have friends that are just hate all of this, and I have my own sense of history and what is taking place, and so the aggressive multinational corporation, I think, was one of the reasons why there was Vietnam, certainly Central America, certainly the Middle East. Anytime you saw this country wade into the Middle East, it was about oil.
Right.
The so-called Seven Sisters, who are now 5. The OPECs of the 70s, the world's largest oil producer, they leveraged foreign policy of this country. And the politicians go along with it. Remember Bandar, who they called Bandar Bush. Bandar controlled American foreign policy, i.e., in what happened. And then what happened after 7/11, after 9/11, Bandar vanishes. But we are in such a spider web of things that have happened since World War II, vis-a-vis the multinational corporations, and they benefit while the workers and the communities lose.
One other comment real quick. I mean, you were talking about, where you grew up at and all that, Pittsburgh or where, the outskirts, these small towns.
Sure.
These small towns have been turned into ghost towns with
crack.
Factories that are broken down and drug addicts and fentanyl. And can we continue that down that road?
No, we can't. And what I'm saying is, capital, when you watch workers and communities and nations play off against each other, and they demand taxes, regulations, wage concessions, or they're going to threaten to move. By the way, that's the trick that will be pulled here for a new football stadium. It's the same trick the multinational plays, increasingly be able to play people, communities, and nations off against each other. So if you don't want to build me this new stadium, I'm sure I can find some state, some city that will. And so the negative outcome generated by multinationals, inequity, unemployment, wage stagnation, all of this has been done. It's done on a micro level and it's done on a macro level. And the anti-corporates, they're called communist or they're called socialist no. The multinational corporation is a very, very powerful entity in and of itself. And now Trump sees this, I hope.
Oh, he sees it. He sees it from behind the scenes like nobody else does.
I hope.
And he's willing to put his reputation, life. How much do you think he lost in the market?
Again, on that level, like you know that Bezos lost, that they all lost, but it's percentage of loss, and like a old retired guy, his percentage hit hurts more than a percentage hit for a multimillionaire.
I got one quick comment. Do you know what the market was when Donald Trump left office?
I don't.
39.
What is
Same
it?
as it is now.
Oh, okay. But it rose. I mean, the world's a relative
comes
place.
And goes.
Well, and it isn't. It doesn't matter one way or the other. It's like people say, your house is worth $100,000. Your house is what it's worth when you sell it.
That's right.
And so, but I'm so intrigued, particularly the Middle Eastern stuff, always intrigued me. And the oil boy, I mean, everything that was done. And then his son goes back the second time. And that's, what happens when...
You don't hear a peep out of them guys anymore, do you?
No, you don't. No, you don't.
No.
And...
Sad.
And look at the death and destruction that Cheney and Bush did. God knows how many Arabs and Pashtuns and little kids are dead and how many GIs are in the troubles that they're in. For what?
For what?
For what? For nothing.
For what?
For nothing.
For money.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
All right. We're rounding third, headed to home. Who's coming up now at the Tom Tancredo, my all-time favorite person. Tommy T got this Lifetime Achievement Award last Saturday at the convention in Colorado Springs. He got a piece of paper. We have to beat him up about that. Wadhams is on the show. and then everybody gets back together from the April Fool's gag that we pulled 10 years ago. I'm Peter Boyles, 710 KNUS. This is Denver's Talk Station. Here we go. Good morning again, everyone. Saturday, April 5, 2025. Good old 710 KNUS. We are Denver's talk station. The weather, 45 the high today, 58 Sunday, Monday, 66 degrees. Yet to come, the guys are going to get back together on April Fool's Day of 10 years ago. We made an H.G. Wells, an Orson Welles, taking H.G. Wells's War of the Worlds, and we had a Spanish language takeover of 710 KNUS that ended up with the cops coming. So everybody's coming back in. We'll talk about it again. In the meantime and in between time, I heard that last Saturday, this man got the Lifetime Achievement Award. Hall of Famer, ladies and gentlemen, the best I know, Tom Tancredo. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, buddy. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Good.
They gave you a lousy piece of paper?
Yeah, it was very nice.
Wait a minute. I've been telling people when those old guys retired from the steel mill, they always had the dinners at the Elks Club.
Yeah.
And they would give the guy like an Evan Root, or they give him a rifle or a shotgun. You love to hunt. Why didn't the party give you a new shotgun? What kind of a shotgun do you have now, anyhow?
Oh, just a couple is all, really. I sold several, but
really,
yeah, down to my 12 gauge double and the 410 that my father gave me when I was 13 years old. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Because you used to have a bunch of them. I've been to your house, and you had a bunch of guns.
I did have a bunch of guns. But
you actually need a gun now. You need one.
Well, yeah, I still have other guns, just not shotguns.
Did I ever tell you the story? Gordon Liddy, and Liddy as a felon was not allowed to have guns, and I said, "So you don't?" He said, "Yes, but Mrs. Liddy has 40 of them." Wasn't that a great
line?
You
know my story with Mrs. Tancredo. But she was. It was a few years ago now, but her birthday was coming up, and so and she had mentioned earlier. Now she swears that this isn't true, but she had mentioned earlier that she would, like maybe learn how to shoot. So I said, "Great, now I know what to get her." So I bought her the Judge.
Sure, everybody's got a Judge. Sure. Yeah.
It shoots a 45 or a 410 shotgun shell out of the same cylinder. So I figured she could always, maybe she wasn't that good a shot, but with a 410 shotgun shell out of that thing, she could hit pretty near anything.
She's going to rock something.
And so I thought it was such a good idea. So wrapped it up and gave it to her for her birthday. And she opened it.
No, you did not.
She says, yeah, she goes, "Oh, well, this is very nice. Thank you." And I thought, well, it didn't go over quite as well as I thought. Anyway, so that was her birthday in June. Mine comes up in December. She gives me a gift. Nice big box. I open it up. It's a Coach purse.
I love Jackie Tancredo. She is.
And I said, "Oh, this is I don't have a thing to wear with this. Is the only problem." So I got the picture. I understand. Okay, if you're going to give a gift that you want, I'll give you a gift I want.
Sure. Where's the gun now?
Oh, I sold it too.
Did you? Where's the purse?
Oh, I'm sure she still has it. About 45 others.
Jackie Tancredo is a Medal of Honor recipient, just being married to. And my favorite.
You mentioned that that when they gave out the gifts there at the mill, they did it at the Elks Club, right? Is that what you said?
Oh yeah, always.
Well, we had to do this event at the Boot Barn Hall.
That's what I heard. Nobody wanted you.
Well, we got the Antifa kept hassling everybody that agreed to host us, and so we had a couple of places, including the Antlers Hotel, which is where it was going to be,
and they ran,
and one other place I forgot. Anyway, the Antifa went after them, and they canceled it. So we ended up at the Boot Barn. But it was a nice, I didn't know that what it was when I saw it on the thing saying the Boot Barn Hall, but it was actually a pretty nice place and everything. Except, man, Antifa was there in force. That's for sure.
Did they have a dinner? Did they have a dinner for you?
Oh, man.
See?
Well, we had SWAT teams and everything.
I heard.
It was hard to get through, and yeah.
People were gunned up. So you didn't even get a dinner?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you did get a dinner?
Oh, sure. I thought you meant that Antifa had the dinner.
No, I'm sure. What did the party serve for dinner for the Tancredo Appreciation Night?
It was a smorgasbord thing, where you go through a line and get stuff. So it was a lot of things, including, some Italian and stuff like that. It wasn't a sit down at a dinner and that people serve you, because it just didn't have that kind of facility there.
Okay,
so.
Like that time.
Anyway, it was still fine. It worked out.
See, when and I'm thinking about myself here, but when the retirement would happen in the mill, and there would be like a piece of paper would be in your time slot, brother fill in the blank from the heat treat or, the ingot mill is retiring after 38 years. He's 65. That was the big thing the union fought for. And they'd always have a dinner at the Elks Club. And the superintendent would come, and everybody hated the superintendent, but they would give the guy an Evan Root, or they'd give the guy a shotgun, or, they would really, they'd kick in, say, this is for brother fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And, I thought for sure they'd do that for you. I should do it. I'm going to do that for you. Well,
maybe they'll do another one. Who knows?
Maybe.
Did you ever hear Johnny Cash's song
Odie? Odie, yeah.
Odie, yeah. It reminds me when you're telling me about that.
About his last day. Odie, he's coming.
Odie.
I know. That stuff's all real.
Every day for 30 years.
Yeah, there was a joke that there's all kinds of inside jokes, but the guy pushing the wheelbarrow out the gate of the mill every day full of straw, and the Pinkertons would come down and go through the straw and couldn't find anything, and on and on and on. And then the brothers are going to retire. So the head of the Pinkertons came down and said, look, we know you're doing something every day. What is it? And the guy said, you know what I'm doing? He said, what? He said, I'm stealing wheelbarrows. So, they would give dinners for these guys, and they'd always get, and one of the things they did, and I was trying to write about this, they almost always gave their World War II record. And the guy's wife and kids would be there, and his grandkids would be there. It was pretty emotional. And they would give him an Evan Root, or give him something up a Winchester or something, and everybody would, and you think to yourself, oh man, now that's us. You got a lousy piece of paper. When did Tom Tancredo's here? When did we first meet?
The first show I can remember doing with you was in the station that was on Morrison Road.
Yeah, sure.
And it had this wooden door kind of thing.
Yes.
Wooden swinging door going in, I can remember. But it was must have been in the earlier, or the mid 70s, I would say, because I went into the state legislature in 76, and so
yes,
I think that's when we kind of connected.
I met you either then or when you were Reagan's guy.
Oh no, it was before that.
Okay,
it was before that. Absolutely, that was quite a while ago, buddy, but. It's been great.
I remember cracking each other up. The first time you came in, that was the old bunker on Morrison Road,
Yeah.
And you came into we I don't know, we have the same sense of humor, terrible,
Right.
bad, negative, bad. And I try that sometimes when people like just tell them a joke, see how they'll react. And you cried, and I thought, this guy's okay. And they're never good jokes. They're never good jokes.
Oh, buddy, you would torture me. We'd be talking about. I'd be coming on to talk about something relatively serious and important, right? And so I'm all primed for that, and we're talking, and then you would come on during the break and tell me a joke or two that would absolutely. You're right. I enjoy your humor. That is true, and it would be so hard oftentimes to just come right back on and be as serious as we're supposed to be under those circumstances.
I did it to you.
Sometimes.
I did it to you on purpose.
Of course, I'm well aware of that.
My Tancredo Boyles' favorite moments is when the governor of the state of Colorado had a close personal friend, and I think that you were on KOA that morning and talked about the close personal friend. And, and Lee Larson was banging on the. Tell that story.
Well, of course, I was supposed to take over for Mike Rosen during the Christmas break time, I think it was the Christmas break. But anyway, I had been talking to Vince Carroll, who at the time was working at the Rocky Mountain News on the editorial page, and he was telling me about the fact that there was going to be this sort of a expose of Governor Romer and his friend BJ.
Greatest name in politics.
That's right. And pictures of them at the airport kissing and stuff and all that. And at the same time, we were going through. It was just when we were going after Clinton for his dalliances and other things that were happening in the White House. It was a big story and everything. And I thought, well, we have our own right here in Colorado. And I got something to say tomorrow morning when I go on the show. And so I go on and I start talking about it. And Lee Larson, look up and he's over on the other side in the broadcast thing. And
yes,
he's he's motioning, cut. and I had just come on, it was I'd only been on like 2 minutes or something. And I said, I'll have to go to another quick break here. and he comes running and he goes, where did you find this out? How did you find this out? Where did you get this information? And I said, I got it from Vince Carroll, Rocky Mountain News. And he said, okay. But he says, you got to call the governor and see if he wants to come on and defend it or whatever, talk about it. I said, sure, great, let's do it. And we tried, of course, but he wasn't going to respond and come on to that. But so we came back on, and I told my story, and it was a lot of fun. And I had I know that Rosen was a little. I don't know that
because he had. Well, in fairness to Mike had to deal with the governor.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, because one of the things, because the governor used to appear once a month with Mike, and Mike played it straight, as we say, with Romer.
That's true.
And
because he wanted him to come back
wanted him to come back, exactly, and that was, Michael knew, as Patty Calhoun, if you remember at Westward, they broke that story about. Again, the governor and his close personal friend. And then, you're right. I think Vince had it next, but Rosen knew, but he knew that to be politically correct, and he's not, but he had to be that way because he had to deal with Romer. And then Romer, I think, didn't come on KOA for, a period of time, and then, Rosen got him back on, and we should ask Mike because I'm pretty sure about this, but he had to ask and Romer had to dodge. So in the meantime,
Yeah. In the meantime, everybody was going bananas about the story.
Yes, they were
claiming, and I had claimed that it was going to be brought out by it was the magazine for the Washington Times.
That's right.
And I said it's going to be, but all I had was Vince's word, I guess, or whatever, that was going to happen. I didn't know it for sure, hadn't seen it, and so I was really sweating it, man, because I thought, oh my God, what if it doesn't come out, or and I couldn't sleep, and I got up and I was taking a shower, and I had telling Jackie we might have to leave town. I don't know, again. We always keep a bag packed. That's a rule.
A bug out. Had a bug out bag.
Bug out bag, and so I said we might have to use the bug out bag. And I'm in the shower, and I got the shower radio on, and I'm listening to this guy. Who was it? Oh yeah, Peter Boyles.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, and just as I turn it on, you start reading from that. Oh God, it was the greatest feeling. I turned up in the shower. I ran out and said, Jackie, unpack. Don't worry. You don't have to leave.
I always envisioned that moment in Goodfellas when he's in the shower and he hears that they knocked off Lufthansa, and he's banging on the wall. He's going, "You did it! You did it!" And I'm thinking, you're in the shower going, "Hey!" But they did. They published the pictures. I thought.
Yes, they did.
Of some smooching.
Right.
And then you were off the hook. Larson was okay. Then Rosen had to deal with whatever that fallout was, and the beat goes on.
And the beat goes on.
You remember when, and I don't want to go over this, but I had been canned at KHOW, and I had been hired here thousands of years ago. And so, Tommy, what were you running for? You're running for governor. And
I had announced on your show. I was announcing on your show, Pat Moller and I.
Yes.
My lieutenant governor candidate. Well, and I were announcing our our intention to run for governor on your show.
Yes. And
I won't go into any more.
No, it's okay.
No.
Listen. How about this? How about I put them on hold, and we will talk about it, because then you asked me to go to speak to a certain Republican women's club.
Yeah.
Remember that one?
Yeah.
All right, hang on. Bring them back. Yeah, because, let's just bring them back. 710 KNUS, I'm Peter Boyles. Let me tell you, and again, coming up, Wadhams, and then everybody from the April Fool's trick that we did 10 years ago, Danny Kaplis' law firm. Dan suggests you choose a lawyer that shares your values. This is all true, because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says so much about you. He's my friend. We text, we talk. Dan Kaplis, the son of a police officer. Dan's also a former seminarian, dedicated the last 40 years of his life helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. My family went through some stuff. It was about 10 years ago. And I'm telling you, man, I couldn't have asked for a better lawyer, and certainly not a better friend. Dan's believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts. Call the man, 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551, KaplisLaw.com. Good morning, everyone, on a Saturday morning, the 5th morning of April, 2025. Good old 710 KNUS, 45 the high today, 58 Sunday, Monday, 66 degrees. Kind enough to be with us, and I count him as one of my dearest friends, Tom Tancredo. We met many, many years ago and have just stayed together through the thick and thin, and he got the well-deserved, the Lifetime Achievement Award last Saturday night. We were talking a little bit about Jackie. Jackie Tancredo took me to the what is it that the Congress and the Senate have, that cafeteria, Tom, that you need the button to get in?
Well, there's one in the House and on the Senate side. Particularly the Senate side, so you get the bean soup.
The bean soup,
and
it's a president's wife's. From like Andrew Jackson's wife, or whose wife is it that made the bean soup?
Oh, heck, I don't know, buddy. It's just
Jackie.
That was called the Senate soup, I guess. I don't know, but I know that's a big deal. Is
huge deal
in the Senate cafeteria.
And your wife took me, and I'd read about the soup, and Jackie said, "Come on, I'll take you," because you have to have a little button to the button. The button is everything.
That's right. Yeah.
And we went in, and you could see people. I said, "Well, that's like it's like all the people," and they were all in there. No, it's really a cool. That was a great Jackie Tancredo moment. And then when you asked me to fill in because you were committed to something else that night
in Washington. Yeah, I had to be in Washington.
You had to be in D.C., and I thought, hey. I got canned off this one job, but I got hired on this other job. I said, I'm golden. I can do what I want to do. So I went in, and I speechified, and I angered up somebody, one person. And
Nancy Doty. Nancy Doty was the head of the Republican Women's Club in Arapahoe County, I guess it was.
Okay.
And when I had to bail out on her, I said, well, I'm sorry, I can't do. Oh, please, no, I can't. And I said, I can't. I've got to be there, and I'm just really sorry. She said, well, can you get me Peter Boyles? And I said, well, it might be hard.
No problem.
Let me see what I can do. Sure, yeah. So that was her. I mean, it's her fault if you think of it. I mean, she asked me to get you.
Well, it was, and I don't want to take it any further than this, but it was all through these scandals, Clintons and others.
Yeah.
And I stood there, and I know it was a full house, and I said, one thing for sure is Tom will never, ever cheat on Jackie. And there was kind of like a pregnant pause, and they were querying why. And I said, because Jackie will kill Tom.
As she has more than once suggested would be the case.
Yeah, and said she'll shoot him. Well, then it went to another level, and then all of a sudden, the well-known substance hits the electrical convenience, and we make for the door. And God let Jackie talk me off the ledge, and I think you called from D.C., and I said hello, and you said, "What have you done now?" I was an innocent person. I was going to get my...
Oh, yeah. Everybody walks into a Republican meeting and says, you have a really ugly baby.
Yeah, your baby's ugly. Oh, God. And then the other one was, I rode my motorcycle to that one thing, and then you walked in and you said, I didn't think you were going to show up.
Oh, yeah. That was for the men's club deal.
God, they were horrible. I said, I rode my motorcycle.
You did a great job.
Well, of course. I'm like, amongst the blind, the one-eyed man is king. But there I was, and then I don't know if you rode your motorcycle out there that day or not, but I know I did. And they were like, that was a very bizarre situation. So we've been through them together, one or two.
That's true. And that is true, my friend.
No man loves you more, and we now have a a lunch group, and we have special people come to the lunch. And I've had.
So when are we going to do that? I sent you some dates.
Yeah, no, coming up. Gary's on board, but Frank's been traveling a lot, so we got to get Frank settled down. But just a group of people. But I got to tell you something, man. I wish I've said this to me many, many times. I wish they were all you, all these politicos and all these operatives and everybody. If they were all Tom Tancredo, the world would be a better place. It really would. Well,
buddy, I tell you, I have more than once thought to myself, what have I got to go on? Oh, Christ, I wish it was Peter's show instead. He's the best.
I lay down. I can lay down like anybody.
Well, that's it.
Yeah. But we have done many things together, and this is one of the all-time great men I think I've known. And I want to say that I kick in, but we should do like some big dinner like they did at the Elks Club. You know, have spaghetti.
I'm all for it.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
Did you remember those fish sandwiches that the bun was just so big, but the fish hung over the edges?
Well, no. Where did you get them, at the Elks Club?
Yeah, at the Smokers. Elks Club made great big fish sandwiches.
You know what I do? Oh gosh, speaking of getting guns for awards, I have right in front of me on the wall down here a 45-70 that I got from Charlton Heston.
Wow.
Yeah, it says for fighting for the. It's got something engraved on it. I can't. But anyway, it's a beautiful rifle and a picture of him. I mean, Mike getting the gun there, and it's in the case. It's really beautiful.
I have never met anybody that had a bad experience with Charlton Heston. My experience was over the top.
Great.
Over the top.
It was great.
Yeah, no, I don't think people had bad experiences with Charlton Heston. He didn't act like he was Charlton Heston. He acted like he was me and you. He was a really good, just a great guy. And quick story. My son was a little boy, and he made a movie. I think it was called Green Hell. It was about the ants, these army ants, and they were in the Amazon, and he was a plantation guy, and the ants were coming, and so Morgan and I watched it, and then I said, that guy's coming on the radio show. He said, the Ant-Man. I said, yeah. So I think Heston was appearing at Elitch's at the theater or something, and I got him to come into the studio. I don't know how I pulled it off. And he came in, and I told him the story about my son and calling him the Ant-Man. Tommy, about 10 days, 2 weeks go by, and I get an envelope, a brown manila envelope, open it up. It's Charlton Heston. He signs it to my son, and he signs it the Ant-Man.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, he didn't sign it Charlton Heston. He signed it the Ant-Man. And so, who has I don't think anybody, but who has a bad time with Charlton Heston?
Yeah, no problem. That's great. Oh God, you speak of the Elitch Theater. Oh man, you talk about bringing back memories.
Well, you worked there.
I started there. Yeah, when I was 16 years old, I started sweeping that park, and for 85 cents an hour, and it was 11 and a half hours a day, 6 days a week. It was great.
It's a paycheck.
I loved it. There was the most I had. I remember after 2 weeks, it was $84 and some cents, and my first paycheck. That's most money I'd seen in all my life, and pretty soon, I always said you could go up the ladder, Elitch's, quickly if you did one thing, and that was come back.
That's right. Play it straight.
So I did, and eventually it was putting me through college, and then I started teaching, and it was a perfect summer job. In fact, I signed a contract. Jackie and I both signed a contract same year at Jefferson County, same school, for $6,000, 9 months of teaching. And I made exactly that at Elitch's for 3 months by that time, because then I was making $1.25 because I was actually the assistant park manager. And so, but it was great. And oh my God, the theater, that was a real problem for us because it was a lost money all the time, and so Helen Bonfils took it over, and she'd come in this big limo on Wednesday. I'd have to open the gate for her to come in because she loved the theater and she wanted to be part of it. Sometimes she would even act and stuff.
I've heard.
And her driver. Oh gosh,
Winky. He was Winky, wasn't he?
Right, and he had, believe this or not, he had 2 diamonds in his 2 front teeth.
Oh, sure. I grew up with guys that had a diamond in their tooth.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
And they called him Tiger Mike because after they got married or whatever, he was, of course, wealthy at that point, and he invested in oil. Tiger Oil was his, and they called him Tiger Mike. We used to go out to this place called Emerling's restaurant.
Steakhouse,
Steakhouse out by Stapleton.
Cowboys
and it was one of those places where everybody, the mayors were there.
Oh, yeah.
You name it. So the Gertlers and I and Bud Breckman, who was the manager, Gertlers owned the park. We'd go there all the time. And Tiger Mike would be there. I remember with his 2 diamonds. Oh, geez. Anyway, weird memories, but really nice.
And then we'll wrap it, but we have a lunch now, and it's Tom Tancredo, Frank DeAngelis, and Gary DeFranch, who are all North Side Italian kids, and me. And you get to tour. We've had the walking tour, the driving tour. I lived there. They lived there. The gangsters lived over here. The FBI was watching them through this window. And it started because it was you and Gary, and you took accordion lessons from his uncle.
That's right. That's exactly. Roxy
DiCarlo, the infamous Roxy. Yeah. And that's how it started.
Just down a couple blocks from where we meet for lunch. No longer there, but it was. I used to give my staff at the regional office here in Denver. I'd say, how about you can wrap up everything for Friday afternoon. We're going on a tour.
I've been on the tour. Yeah,
that's right. We're going to go through Tancredo land. I tell them.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, and these guys, when you go with them, I lived here, but then this guy moved over here, and then this guy had to leave, and you get to tour.
This guy got shot in the front porch.
Yeah, this guy got shot on the front porch here. And okay.
Yep.
I just want you to know I love you, and I wanted to say it publicly. Congratulations, and everything is well. It's way beyond deserved. Well, listen, lunch coming up. We got to.
Okay.
It's DeAngelis. We're waiting on DeAngelis now. So.
All right,
boss. Thank you, sir.
Okay, partner.
All right, everybody.
Take care.
You too, sir. Tom Tancredo, everyone. David Ellis Jewelers, and you heard me. And again, the holidays are coming, weddings are coming, everything is headed your way. The valuables that you have to David Ellis Jewelers to get a fortune in cash, to secure an appraisal from David for all those valuables that you have tucked away in your home. It is true. Let me share the other reasons to see David, just in case you don't have the Rolex watch, the rare coins, or the silver tea set. Go see David Ellis for all the most meaningful gift-giving occasions. David's Jewelers are and everybody just has the right item, just the right price for the special people that mean the most. An antique watch, an emerald pendant, a gold necklace, a diamond ring. This trusted jeweler has been buying precious metals and antiques in Colorado for decades. Dazzling cases filled with new and used pieces that your loved ones will treasure. Visit David Ellis Jewelers. See for yourself. Look for the black awning on the corner of 3rd and Clayton and Cherry Creek. David Ellis, Cherry Creek. DavidEllisJewelers.com. Call my friend David at 303-322-8779. 303-322-8779. Tell David Ellis Peter Boyles sent you. Now, we're going to keep rolling on call. 2 minutes. We have 2 minutes. Okay, with 2 minutes, we'll go to Mark and Aurora. Mark, thanks, man. You got 2 minutes. You're on the show.
Hey, Pete. Earlier it came up because of all this asset collapse, and it's funny, I was actually heavily involved in the discussions on tariffs in college back in the late 70s, so it's funny to see it play out. I think they're doing it the wrong way right now. But you only have about 3 to 7% of the gold in the world against 1 year's GDP. So you can't really put the genie back in the bottle as far as the gold standard. Of course, we were the ones that were on it for our currency. And to give you an idea of what that would do, Pete, if you went to a gold standard right now on currency, the $660,000 house median, or at least it was last year in Colorado, it would sell for $46,000.
Yeah, sure. And
so you'd have a $500,000 mortgage and a $46,000. The reason stuff is so expensive,
how about this?
The dollar is so worthless.
Let me give you a chance. Let me throw you on hold so you can come through the break. It's Saturday, April 5, 2025. I'm Peter Boyles. 45, 58 on Sunday, Monday, 66 degrees. A drop with Dick Wadhams about last Saturday Republican Party, where the Rhinos win. They knocked the Davidians out of the box, and then Casey and Beth and Tommy Moller and Roberto and Mr. Crowley, we create the great fake of 10 years ago on April Fool. It's a Saturday. We are 710 KNUS. Shotgun. Morning, everybody. A Saturday. 45 will be the high, says the 710 KNUS Weather Center. 58 on Sunday and 66 on Monday. I'm Peter Boyles. Good to have you all here. The thrust of the show is the stock market seeing the biggest two-day wipeout in history. The market lost $11 trillion since Inauguration Day, $6.6 trillion Thursday and Friday. And what is the meaning of all of this? And we'll go back to our phones. I certainly talked about my sense of it earlier. Hey, Mark, you're back up. Go ahead if you would, please.
I will. And by the way, I remind you of the fact that I worked with Tancredo in the state legislature in '79, Cliff Dodge and House Crazies, and
Sam, then you
Bob Burford, who later married Ann Gorsuch,
sure.
whose son is the Supreme Court judge. Anyway, so
Sam
it
Zackham,
was a fun time.
Sam Zackham.
And the guy that was at the back in the last seat was a guy named Federico Pena.
I know way too many stories about that.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
But to go back to the gold thing, our GDP 2024 was $29 trillion, and our gold holdings in the whole country is $500 billion. So if you push back into the gold standard, then you've got to take the value of everything down by that magnitude, 60-fold. So it really doesn't work.
Let me set up where I see this. I think this has to happen. And the multinational corporations that have always been when they show up in 45 strong and start to dictate foreign policy, dictate wars, dictate presidential appointees, all of those things. And when the means of production leaves this country, and when they take the steel mills and coal, not the coal mines, but the steel mills, factories, forges, so-called means of production, what economists tend to call basic industry, cement, concrete, iron, those kinds of things. When they go to Beijing, when they go to Pakistan, when they go to India, when they leave the country, they take the jobs of my youth with them. They destroy the health care, the unions, it's all gone.
Absolutely.
And it has to come back. Pete,
I was getting the queerest looks you've ever seen. You were in the poli-sci department. We had some of the same professors. Lamy was one of them. And so I get it, but you have to do it. The reason they're creating panic is it's a shotgun right now because he's trying to negotiate. You've got to be precise with, cars. Listen, a lot of people don't realize, I think you do, that in August 15th, 1971, Nixon took us off the gold standard.
Absolutely.
That's why we had the Arab oil embargo.
And also
caused it.
Also opened the door to China. Now, was the Clintons gave China favored nation. It wasn't Nixon. It was the Clintons. But once that was the go ahead and go, and they broke the jobs and they took the jobs and they moved the means of production. They moved the tax base. And when you take and I'm very critical of multinationals, and when you enter into contracts with countries that have low human rights, no environmental standards, they play workers and communities and nations off one another. And when I was doing my get ready for the show, my show prep, it dawned on me, this is the exact same game the NFL plays and will play. And it's the Waltons, the Walmart people own your Denver Broncos. Now, the moment's coming, and it was played very well by Pat Bowlen. You want to build me a new stadium? Fine. Those guys over there will. And so when you go into the third world and where the despots will gain enormous amounts of money, and you say to them, do you want my copper mined here? No. Okay. Well, it will go to country X then. Oh, wait a minute. And so the outcomes that are generated by the multinational corporations in equity, unemployment, they staged wage stagnation, and then all the guys that I grew up with, they lose their jobs. And so we become a service economy. The multinational has tax avoidance schemes, multinational tax havens. Multinational corporations gain competitive advantage over small and medium companies or corporations inside the United States, and they profit, and they have their tax tools.
Pete,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I've been in the oil and gas business for 44 years, which just means I'm that stupid.
No.
And well, no. But what I'm saying is, the highs and lows. Everything's determined by geopolitics. It's not determined by actual. So the problem is what I believe. This is what I believe, Pete. Like you said, believe stronger than.
Sure.
So what I believe is we would have virtually no debt if our policy post World War II wasn't to get the cheapest energy for the world we could get.
That's one. And after the war,
what we've done is we've spent all of our technology on wristwatches that tell us if we have high blood sugar. Well, half the people in the country are obese. Sure, we have high blood sugar. But here's the thing. We won't do that, Pete. And I think we should, but we won't.
Does this this is a question I posed to myself Monday. Does this have to happen? In other words, there are make breaks, and to watch the stock market do what it's doing, scaring people, but does it have to be done to perhaps, if it can, force what economists call basic industry back inside this country?
Well, yes, it does, to answer your question. But B, let me put something with it. What I think is going on with Trump is the only lever to power that he didn't have that he had 4 years ago is he took interest. He took the discount rate to zero, and he took interest. So houses were so much cheaper. The Fed, Jerome Powell said he would not leave. So he's basically doing all these things to create panic. 2 weeks ago, there was going to be one Fed cut. After the last 2 days in the market, now they're scheduling 5 cuts. So, in other words, it's a tactic, but it should have otherwise been done precision based. The only good thing is, there already are some countries that are making deals like Vietnam, which a lot of our apparel comes from. By the way, I think George Bush was the guy who set up all the plans where all the factories would go. That's what I think he was doing in the CIA for China.
We were talking about him.
That's why he's my least favorite guy in politics.
Well, he's certainly. You got to go to Prescott, and when you get to Prescott,
I know.
You see where
Hitler.
But the Bushes who have danced the dance for so many years, and Uncle Neil was just a shining example. That's all. He was stupid. He was stupid.
I met him, unfortunately.
I met him too. My ex-wife. He was married to a woman named Sharon, and my ex-wife's great line was, she was always looking for the place that Sharon put her hand to make his jaw go up and down, because he certainly wasn't in a home run. And
my brother bought the only oil he found in Wyoming. Zapata was his dad's company.
But he called his Zapata too.
And my dad in the '60s knew it was a front.
I got time.
He knew they weren't a real oil company.
I got to look real quick. I got the last interview with him before he fled town, and I did it. I did it on CNN because they wanted the interview. I got a minute. He started beating on the table. I did nothing wrong. I looked at him and I knew him. I said, "Hey, Neil, do you really think that you blew a dry hole up in Wyoming and then go to the bank and they say, 'Don't worry about it, here's more money,' and you sign off on another guy's loan, and you don't think," and it dawned on me 6 months later, that's how he saw his family do business all of his life, and he didn't think he did anything wrong. Fair enough?
It's totally fair, Pete. You have a great weekend.
You too, brother. Thank you. All right, everybody, we got a turn coming again. I think we got Dick coming up. Dick's going to do a quick drop, Dick Wadhams, and then the guys will come here. We got Casey, Beth, and Tommy Moller, and Roberto, Mr. C, the great fake of a decade ago. I'm Peter Boyles. This is 710 KNUS. And good morning again, everyone. It is 7:10 KNUS, the voice of the people, Saturday morning, April 5, 2025, good old 7:10. The Weather Center, 45 the high today, 58 on Sunday, Monday, 66 degrees. It's been a great show. Tom Tancredo was with us, and we did lots of open lines talking about the stock market, the two-day wipeout in history, the market loses, and why, and my critique of it and others as well. And coming up 10 years ago on April Fool's, we pulled this Orson Welles stunt like they did on Halloween night in '38, where they took War of the Worlds and brought it to life on the radio. So we took our radio show, and I got the green light from Kelly Michaels, and we had a Spanish takeover. And just everyone was great involved in it. And so Casey and Beth, Casey was the producer at the time, Casey Boyer, he and his wife, because she was part of it, she will be here. Tommy Muller's in California. He'll do it by phone. Roberto, Mr. Crowley, and everyone, the great fake of 10 years ago. Now, last Saturday in Colorado Springs, there was a quick turnaround of the Republican Party. No one better to talk about it than this man. Ladies and gentlemen, Dick Wadhams joins us. Good morning, sir. And was that unexpected for that to happen last Saturday?
Hi, Peter. Not totally unexpected. I think everyone following that election closely knew it would be close. And so I don't think it was a huge surprise that Brita Horn won. And yet she won by 29 votes, I think it was, out of 450 cast or something like that. So it was definitely a victory, but it was not a sweeping victory, but a win is a win is a win.
Now, these were the dreaded enemy. From my own reading and trying to comparison analysis, the rhinos took everything, the Davidians got clipped. Is that fair?
Yes, it is. There were three elections last Saturday for chairman, vice chair, and secretary. And the incumbent vice chair and secretary, both of whom were allied with Dave Williams, were also defeated. And then, of course, a candidate who was also allied with Williams lost to Brita Horn.
What does that say in this long battle that's taken place inside the Republican Party, state of Colorado? Is there going to be a peace treaty? Is there going to be a calmness that will set upon the party? What will the outcome of that be?
I don't think it will mean peacetime in the Republican Party.
I don't either.
In fact, there have already been people trying to raise money outside the party to take on these rhinos, and there will always be that element. But I will say this, Peter, one thing's for sure. Brita Horn ran on a platform that the party would no longer spend money to attack Republicans in primaries. She ran on a platform to quit the purging that was constantly going on under Dave Williams. She also came out opposed to opting out of the 2026 Republican primary. Her agenda was very clear. So the fact that she won this election is a great testament to her running a very solid campaign, and the fact that over half of the state central committee, which is about 450 members, said we're done with this divisiveness in the party. So what I do think is that the state party will have a new attitude, and I think it will be very positive. But there will always be detractors who want to go back to the glory days of Dave Williams, but most people don't want to do that.
And Dave Williams, with respect, did not win any, including his own, did he?
No, he ran for Congress in the 5th Congressional District and endorsed himself and then spent party money on his campaign, but he lost to Congressman Jeff Crank in the primary. So he ran. But remember, Dave Williams and the party endorsed 18 candidates in primaries across the state. 14 of them lost.
Yeah.
Only 4 won, and those 4 that won were they were not in competitive primaries. So he lost 14 of those 18 elections.
So what does it say about Republican voters in the state of Colorado?
Well, of course, you got to remember that the committee is only made up of about 450 people. I guess maybe it might be as high as 500. But these are party leaders from all 64 counties. They're state legislators, members of Congress, the Board of Education, district attorneys. So these are the leaders of the party. We're going to have everything on the ballot in 2026, Peter. Governor, U.S. Senator, Attorney General, Treasurer, Secretary of State. All 8 congressional districts are up. All the House of Representatives again, half of the state Senate. So we're going to have competitive primary races in a lot of those races I just mentioned. So we won't fully understand which direction the Republican Party is going until we get into the nomination process. But for the time being, there will be a new attitude in the state party that will be very positive and will not be looking to purge people just because they disagree with them.
I believe that things must settle down, and perhaps we'll see candidates come forward. Right now, in the way the party was for the last foreseeable past, why would anybody with integrity, anybody that had a family life, who really had a bent to be in public service, why in God's name would he or she put a toe into that party?
Well, that's a great question.
And truly.
I think, in fact, Peter, I think that you go to kind of the heart of the significance of this election last Saturday, is that a lot of people who would like to run for public office, as you say, and also donors. I will tell you, major donors did not give a dime to the state party as long as Williams is running it.
No.
And I think that this will be a breath of fresh air, and it will restore some credibility to the party that will encourage strong candidates to come forward. But I think that might be the most significant impact of last Saturday.
Dick Wadhams is here, Peter Boyles, 710 KNUS. That was and I got lots of phone calls and text messages from, I would say, both sides, if that's conceivable. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, I've said this forever, the way that the Republican Party eats its young, why they, even I'm told that one candidate in particular, no names used, they spread this candidate's criminal record, arrest record, and I mean, this is just nasty stuff. And I thought, if I was some guy and had a family and had one of those professional jobs, why would I get near not what the Democrats are going to do to me, but rather what would I do when I got in with the Davidians, what they would do to me? And so I'd stay away.
Yeah. Yeah, and Peter, what's interesting is that there were some successes this last election. I mean, Gabe Evans won that 8th congressional district. Right. Great young congressman.
Yep.
Jeff Hurd won the 3rd district, and Jeff Crank won the 5th. And the thing about it is that all 3 of those guys were opposed by Dave Williams in the primaries.
Oh, absolutely.
They won, and then he didn't do a thing to help them in the general election.
No.
We picked up 3 seats in the Colorado House of Representatives because of the leadership of Rose Puglisi, the minority leader, and other members of the House. Yeah. They didn't get any help from the state party. Same thing in the Senate, where we won some really tough elections in the Senate. No help from the state party. So the successes that the party had this last election were achieved in spite of the Colorado Republican Party. That will not be the case this next election.
No, they were just out and out rejected, attacked, made fun of, spoofed at, and it was a very small group of people that seemed to have that much power, and they purged. It was party purging, and I for one, am so glad. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens next. It doesn't mean a win, but let's see what happens. The gubernatorial is coming up, the most significant, and and Polis is term limited. And who steps up for the Republican Party? I'm being told that Bennett is going to step in and run for the seat for the Senate. For the governor's chair. He's a formative, competitive candidate to put up. who is going to come up against him in the Republican Party who isn't saying the election was stolen and all the other insanity that we heard from all of these people for all of these years. So that's the question.
Yeah, and we don't know the answer to that yet, Peter. But as you point out, the governor's seat is open. Polis cannot run again. It will be an open AG race, an open treasurer race,
Yep.
open Secretary of State. You mentioned Senator Bennett. What's shaping up in the Democratic Party is kind of interesting. Attorney General Phil Weiser has raised just under $2 million already.
Yep.
That could be a nasty primary on the Democratic side. And I think Democrats are already getting a little nervous about that. That Weiser is insisting that he's not going to get out, and Bennett is going to run. He's hired a campaign manager, and he's in.
Yeah.
And that could be a real negative, nasty primary in the Democratic Party.
Well, maybe then the Democrats will learn what the Republicans have learned, that you can do that. But generally, the Democrats seem to go along. Decisions are made behind, as they say, in smoke-filled rooms. But on this one, I think you're right. And there's a lot of payback on both of those sides. But again, who will emerge out of the field of people who are Republican or call themselves Republican, who can step up and not be, all the issues that I'm like anti-marijuana. You don't have a chance in hell in the state of Colorado if one of the planks of your platform is anti-marijuana. You're beat. Why does anyone think that if you proclaim yourself strongly anti-marijuana, you're going to win? No, you're not. You're not.
Yeah, and Peter, you're right. I mean, if we nominate a candidate who is out of touch with the majority of Coloradans, we're not going to win. But, there are so many areas of vulnerability
I agree.
For Democrats. And public safety. I mean, and the budget. The Democrats are in a very vulnerable position on the issues.
Yes.
Now they're wanting to repeal Tabor. And I think the public is going to rise up against that.
If you want to sit down and craft your perfect candidate, I'm pro-life, but at the same time, I understand what an issue it is. Let the law be the law. All this stuff, and every time the Republican Party starts digging the ditch, here comes the dirt, and you're thinking to yourself, that got you beat the last time. Why are you bringing it into the play the second time, or the third time, or the fourth time? Dick?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's Peter. We've got to have candidates who can recognize what kind of an agenda can win a Republican nomination, but also appeal to that half of the electorate are unaffiliated voters.
That's right.
And you look at people who have won before in Colorado, and the common thread with every one of them is they did that. They ran aggressive campaigns, contrasting with the Democrats. That's what Wayne Allard did. That's what Bill Owens did, and Cory Gardner did. And that's what we need that's the kind of candidate we need in 2026.
But if it goes the other way, they'll get clipped. And
there we go. Yeah.
There we go again. Thanks, Dick, you put up with a lot through all of this, and it's it had to be, on some level, there had to be some you had to have some emotions when you saw these people burn.
It was a great day last Saturday, hearing what the result was, because it was a sweeping victory, and it was it really does introduce a new era, I hope. So.
What's the bet? Take care. Thanks, Uncle Dick.
All right. Thanks, Peter.
Dick Wadhams, everyone. All right, now we go to open lines. 303-696-1971. U.S. stocks see the biggest two-day wipeout in history. The market lost $11 trillion since Inauguration Day. Just Thursday and Friday of this week, $6.6 trillion. What does it mean? Does it have to happen? And in fact, Roughly $11.1 trillion has been wiped away from U.S. stock market since January 17th, the Friday before Donald Trump took oath, and some $6.6 trillion Thursday and Friday alone. Now, my contention is, does this have to happen, number one? Number two, the role of the multinational that we've talked about on radio shows for 30 years. The rise of the multinational, and we've talked about it. Watch these people in action. They control foreign policy. They control America's foreign policy. Multinational corporations fly no flag. The erosion of sovereignty. It's just money. They pay no. The taxes they can dodge and get away from. So, but principally, the jobs of my childhood are gone. They've gone to China. They've gone to Pakistan. They've gone to India. They've gone anywhere in the third world that they can go. They have gone to countries that have very low human rights, very low environmental standards, and a world economy that's facilitated by multinationals. The capital of the multinational will increasingly be able to tax, regulate, wage concessions. They play the workers, they play the communities, they play the nations off to one another. When things get bad, then we have a war. The tax avoidance schemes, the multinational tax havens, but the jobs, the basic jobs. I've talked about my working model, the snow shovel company, Terre Haute, Indiana. They were doing great. There are men there. It's a union. They got a job. They're doing well. They have insurance. Their kids are going to school. Well, along comes the multinational corporations. Look at Walmart. I mean, there's a million different places like this. That's just part and part. Ace Hardware carries those Chinese shovels. So they start making snow shovels in China. And they import them into this country at a lower price. 2 minutes. The Terre Haute factory closes. All these guys are now out of work. They've lost their insurance. The union's been broken. And now they're making these snow shovels in China. They bring them in, and they are cheaper. Now, the snow shovels are the same price, but better yet, even higher than they were before. So where does that capital go? Where do those workers? What happens in those communities? And, I grew up in a little steel mill town, and, what happened? The mills are gone. And the proposed spectrum of people looking at this, the multinational corporations in the United States, they're the ones. I mean, as a show of hands, anybody really believes that George W. Bush went to war in Kuwait for the Democratic people of Kuwait, or that what his son did in Iraq, what they did, what was done in Southeast Asia? So we're coming to the point now, if Trump sees it right, we got to bring the jobs back. Now then, what happens? So 303-696-1971, it's Saturday, and coming up, we'll talk about the April Fool joke. 710 KNUS. Country music with a flute. The Marshall Tucker Band. 710 KNUS, 45 will be the high, 58, 66 on Monday. Saw them live. They're strong. Kick it out. Saturday morning, everyone, April 5, 2025, 710 KNUS. We have one line open, 303-696-1971. And coming up, everybody gets together. We'll talk about the great fake of 10 years ago. Tell you about Danny Kaplis and go back to the phones. Good friend. My man is Dan Kaplis. And I say this all the time when our family went through some things. Not only was he like the great lawyer and gave the best advice ever, just a good friend. And when you say to somebody, that guy is my friend, it's Dan Kaplis. Danny suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says so much about you to everybody involved in the case. We talk about Dan, how he grew up and what happened. I believe, and he is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases, believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict case in Colorado history. Serious firm for serious cases. If you need a good lawyer, just want to start with the questions, Dan's the man. 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551, or hit dankaplislaw.com, CAPLASlaw.com. Here we go. We'll go to Ralph. Ralph, thanks for waiting. You're on the show. Good morning.
Good morning, Peter.
Hey, man.
This is rather odd. It's sort of Ludditism extrapolated. But you're talking against multinational corporations. And you're against the multinational part. But my question is, why should we allow corporations?
Well,
and let me just start with this.
All right.
Everybody loves something as long as they and their butts are not on the line. That's the whole concept of a corporation.
Okay.
As long, correct?
Well, it's called, when studying basic economics, the notion of a firm. What is the purpose of a firm, and which is a better way perhaps to say it because a firm is not necessarily a multinational, but
that is correct, Peter.
But the multinational.
And the question.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You say.
Well, and the question I have is this: I'm watching Wolf Hall, Cromwell, Mirror and the Light on TV. There were no corporations back then. Corporations came in only when there was a, quote, public purpose. That's the United States in the early 1800s.
No, I mean, I disagree again, because the beginnings of the multinational corporations are in the British East India Company, the Dutch East India Company. These people have been the multinationals.
That is correct. But I'm going back to Cromwell. I'm going back before that.
All right.
The bottom line is a corporation is a fake person.
Well,
now, what we do with that fake person is we allow people not to put their own personal finances at risk. What you do is you say, we're going to give some special favors to these fake people.
Well, we'll protect
them.
We'll protect them with the strength of the state. The history of
that is correct.
And the history
and that's why, Peter, look, I've been both a lawyer in a partnership and a lawyer in a corporation. In the partnership, go back to Ben Franklin or whoever back then. They basically had their assets. That's why the Declaration says our lives, our fortunes.
Oh, yeah.
What they were talking about was their property was put entirely at risk.
But remember,
if you put everything at risk, you are much more careful with it. You're much more careful on how other people treat it.
Well, no. The notion of private property comes as long as you are with the divine right of kings, and this is why Jefferson is right. But the The history of multinational corporations is the history of colonialism. The multinational, they're found, the colonial factories were port cities. If you go back to where, Hong Kong or Shanghai or any place that you look like this, where they traded when they brought black people out of Africa. They came out of colonial. They were the colonial ports. It's all been done. The Dutch East Indian Company, and it goes back to the beginning of the 17th century, and you go back to the British East India and the Dutch East India, Hudson Bay Company. We can name all of these early corporations engaged in international trade, exploration. They set up trading posts, the Dutch government. Let me finish. When it reverses itself, when they're no longer they're not being colonialized by the state, using the military and the state power. Now comes after post-World War II, when the corporations go abroad and they take the American military with them. Now it's the model, but you flip the script. Now, to protect where you're getting your basic, getting everything for basic industry, when you're getting raw materials, you have to protect it. That's the oil companies. When do you think, and I know your answer because you're smart, when George Bush, father and or son, sends the military to Kuwait the first time, do you honest to God think that the reason that they gave 1 million soldiers go, that they're going to save the lives of the democratic people of Kuwait? Because that was what he said. Do you believe? All right. Now, when his son and Dick Cheney send the American military into Iraq, do you think they were doing that to go get this fill in the blank that had taken on this country and killed as many people as he could on 9/11? Do you think that's true?
Of course not.
So why did
wait.
All right, I'm waiting.
But what do you say about Smedley Butler?
Smedley
Butler,
was he doing? I'm trying
he was protecting the gangsters of Wall Street
in Central America.
Same as the Bushes.
No, absolutely.
Except it was sugar companies.
Well, it was bananas. It was whatever pineapples. Okay. It was.
Whatever's there. If it's there, then what we have is a corporation, multinational yours, that has invested in it, and we need to go protect it. And my question is basically this.
All right.
Every corporation that I've dealt with wants to get bigger. And if you go back and trace even the East India Company, what they started with was basically a corporation and a big risk, protected by the government.
But without the government protection, i.e. the military, and that gets kids killed. And Smedley Butler, for the people who don't know, there's only been one person in the history of this country to receive 2 Congressional Medals of Honor, and it was Smedley Butler. And I've read this new book, and we're trying to get this guy on the show to talk about the life of Smedley Butler. And the Marines, according to the book, used to have a song when, if it's good enough for Smedley Butler, it's good enough for me. Well, he turns on them. And he was, when they were, and that's where Puller went. And all those guys they were called the Banana Republics, and then, by the way, many of those guys go off to become Chinese Marines. It's a game that was played by the multinational, and there was a guy that when they invented ships that could put bananas in their hold and keep them cold, that was the make break. Sam the Banana Man, and they could bring fruit from Honduras. The planters that went to Honduras were former slaveholders in the South. United States sent them. They went and they built plantations in Honduras. I saw them. Plantations in Guatemala. They built them in places. The place they couldn't go to the Dominican Republic. They wouldn't let them in. They just didn't want anything to do with them. There was nothing to steal. But they could, and they made the Hondurans step off the sidewalk, take their hats off. Same crap they were pulling in the antebellum South. It was all supported by American foreign policy. So that's early stuff. And it just spreads and goes its own way. So I don't know the answer, but let me ask you this question because of jammed up time. Is this something that needs to happen?
I think yes, because bottom line on American patriotism is we are very patriotic as long as it's someone else's butt on the line. With regard to corporations, the same thing is true. If you're a partner, you pay a lot more attention to what's being done with your money.
Well, yes.
If you are a corporation, well, what the heck? We'll take let's take a look at 2008, 2009.
What do you do when you
corporations get?
What do you
corporations get Chapter 11, which means that a court will cut their debt down to whatever their property is worth.
When you see your when you see your 401k shrink, is that now you're playing one-on-one ball?
No.
You're not?
What you're doing is you're letting somebody else handle your money, and you're hoping that they will do a good job with it.
Well, you got to ask the United States in 1929 when the market goes, and my grandma and all those individuals.
That was the trust and the corporations.
That's still the individuals were worried. I love the call as always. I'm going to jump here. Let's go to Jim in Aurora. Hey, Jim, welcome to the show. Thanks.
Yeah, listen, I think Ralph made some really good, substantial points. I want to delve into that for just a minute and then go back to the tariff thing a little more.
Right.
If the plus and the minus of these corporations is if somebody's going to go down to, some country or up to and put money on the line, they want to minimize their risk. Who wouldn't? And then the military, for better or worse, helps back that up once hopefully a deal's been made. And then you've got the international banking system,
but what about,
hopefully that's solid enough to get your money back.
What about the other end, Jim? What about when the industrial base of this country is taken, stolen, placed abroad, and these guys were left with holding the bag?
I couldn't agree more. You're preaching to the choir. That's my next point, and that is, well, first of all, this tariff thing, when it was first instituted, kind of like a lot of the unions, probably had a lot of merit because you have developing countries then and now that kind of want to protect themselves, and they want to use their economic advantage to produce whatever they can and hopefully not get invaded, so to speak, by
they're gonna get
foreign economic competitors.
They get run over. Their governments become controlled. The Shah's government, up until the overthrow of the Shah, totally controlled by the British, totally controlled by the Americans. That was Aramco, it was British Petroleum. The Shah, when the Shah is overthrown, when the Shah is voted out of office, and most of the day shows up, and there's environmental crimes, the like of which no one talks about. The Iranian people are getting 10 cents on the dollar. They're being taken apart by the multinational corporations in this country as well as in Europe.
I agree, but leaving that aside, back to this big tariff thing.
No, because it happened everywhere.
Keeping that in mind, then, at the end of the day, I'm for American jobs. But whether we like it or not, the reason a lot of jobs went abroad is you have people here now that if you ask them to work a menial job at $20 an hour.
Now you're jumping ahead. What I'm saying to you is what happened initially.
I'm combining all of it. I'm integrating it all. But you have an economy here in America that if we're not able to outproduce and we don't keep our labor rates reasonable or market price or low, and then we're not going to.
If you're asking a guy who's working in a mill in Pittsburgh to compete with a steel worker in Shanghai, you're going to lose the argument. But if you at least have somebody stand there and be part of the wall, like I'm saying, I'm not the biggest Donald Trump fan in the world, but does this, what's happening right now, need to happen? That's my question to you. I'm a minute from a break, so that's my final question to you. Does it need to happen?
I think it needs to happen in that this country economically is too much like a patient on life support. And some new doctor, that's Trump, is coming in and saying, hey, man, tear these bandages off.
Well,
we're going to go through some pain. You're going to suffer like hell.
Yeah.
But your odds of making it are probably better if we do this. If we don't do it, you've got debt, suffering, economic loss.
The aggressive, what I'm watching, and I'm not sure whether it's right or wrong. I'm not sure of the outcome. I'm just saying what I have witnessed and read about for all of these years and traveled and seen and watched these people who go abroad, tax avoidance schemes, multinational tax havens, multinational corps gaining competitive advantage over anything that can be done in this country. Now, how is the small corporation that you're talking about, how are they to stand up against the Malta? They can't. I got to pull it. Stand by, everybody. 710 KNUS. It is showtime, everyone. Saturday, April 5, 2025. Good old 710 KNUS. 45 will be a high, 58 on Sunday. Monday, 66 degrees. Coming up, taking us in the time machine to 10 years ago here in this radio studio where we flipped the script and made an April Fool's joke to everyone. In the meantime, we're talking in open lines. We go to Nick in Denver. Hey, Nick, thanks, man. You're on the show.
Thanks for taking my call. I'll
Pleasure.
make this brief because I'm sure you got a lot of other people lined up. What Trump is doing was the necessary medicine. Our economy was on life support, and we've learned the hard lesson that you can't have a first-rate economy that's just a service economy that fixes the products made by other people. And it's just a shame that when all this was happening in the 70s and 80s, the government, our government, allowed these multinational corporations to basically get away with murder.
But they started.
And now we're reaping the reward.
But they started before. And 1940.
Well, before that, yes.
Yeah. 1945, the world lies in ruins. The United States of America is the solid place. And there were two monetary get-togethers. Dunbarton Oaks was perhaps the most significant one. And the decisions were made that this was going to be the dollar that was going to be predicated on the world's economy. And then it began. The Marshall Plan that saved Europe from pretty much going commie, but it also brought everybody in and also went the other way, went into Asia and did the same thing. And the realization was then there. But the U.S. multinationals, the bringing of opium into Hong Kong, which is one of my favorite things to read, and now the Chinese are bringing drugs into America. Nothing is lost on anyone, is it? We addicted collectively. Franklin Roosevelt's grandfather was an opium dealer. The British were opium dealers. They took it into China, and they started out with the Mandarin class and worked their way down to the coolies. Now we have fentanyl. Where's the fentanyl coming from? Nick?
Mostly China.
That's right. And who mules it in? Mexican cartels.
That's right.
So is that a
So you're saying this is payback? This is
Of course
payback.
it is. Of course it is. Nothing's lost on these people. And by the way, we are their market, just like they are our market. But when you look at the outgrowth generated by multinationals, inequity, unemployment, wage stagnation, environmental crimes, low human rights, that never seemed to bother Democrats or Republicans, did it?
No, it did, and that has got to be when the historians write their history books at this period. They're going to say that's the major failure of American democracy, to not rein these multinationals in and have them play by rules that were fair to everybody.
But the multinationals funded the life systems of Republicans and Democrats alike. Go look at who is multinational and who funds a presidential candidate in and of the same. But the most significant thing, and it dawned on me doing show prep this week, using the I will move my corporation out of your third world country into another third world country unless you do A, B, C, and D. Isn't that how the NFL gets stadiums built?
Pretty much. I've always been against the NFL holding these cities hostage and saying, look, if you don't pay for half the cost of a new stadium, we're moving. And the city should start standing up and say, go move.
But in other words, it's called increased mobility of the multinational corporation benefiting capital. That's what the academics say. So if the workers in the communities will lose, and the negative outcomes will be generated by the multinational corporations, will be increased inequity, unemployment, wage stagnation. So and of all people, the Waltons, who know how to play this game far better than you and I on our best day, they say, okay, we want to go east, and we'd like to take Elitch's along. We'd like a big corporation out there, and we'd like the parking, and we'd like the food, and we'd like. You don't want to do it? Well, guess who wants to? And they'd go. And because there is someone else that will do it. So the move away from labor towards capital, instead of contributing to the balance of payment, they siphon off the revenue. They send it, because there is no flag, there is no sovereignty, there is no nationality, they fly no flag. And the multinational corporations, American Foreign Policy, Sovereignty at Bay is one of my favorite books. And it's called State-Centric Approaches. Watch it. And so is Trump playing the game now? You tell me.
I think it's too early to tell, but at least he's trying to shake up the system, because what has been going on in this country is not sustainable. It's one of the reasons we have a $37 trillion debt.
Sure, but you can make a case that this country was built. We were the blunt of the multinational. We were, when the British come in the colony system, the British East India Company, Dutch East India Company is one thing, but Hudson Bay Company, or the people that come to Plymouth Rock, that's a corporation. And I'm not throwing rocks at it. I'm just saying that's how it was done. And then we kicked their rear ends out for exactly the same reasons. We're getting taxed, we're not getting represented. You do what you want to do. You take your military, put it in our houses. Wasn't that done in Iraq?
Pretty much. Well, I was definitely dead set against that whole Iraq thing, which was a joke.
But you're importing. You're saying to yourself, are they buying and selling licenses in foreign markets? Yes. So they're control the foreign market, and the American military must go along to protect them, and that's voted by you. The multinational runs American foreign policy. Straight up. Control is considered an important aspect of this. Watch these guys.
Well, unfortunately, we are where we are because the multinationals were given free rein to do anything they wanted, basically.
Of course. Raw materials. Oil is the best one of all. The old seven sisters of petroleum that are now five. Do you really think, does anyone listening think that war in the Gulf, 2 wars in the Gulf, were fought for what reasons other than oil?
Oil, of course. Everybody knew that. Most people knew it.
Did they?
Yeah. Well, I hope so. I'm hoping they could see through the smoke screen.
Well, do you think that George Herbert Walker Bush went into Kuwait to save the democratic system of the people of Kuwait?
Oh, that was laughable.
All right.
Of course not.
All right. Then why did they have banners up that said Kuwait is free?
Oh, that was all propaganda.
Okay. What about Iran? Well, excuse me. What about Iran next? Next on the list. You watch. Careful. Because these guys, that's a whole different Mongambo. They're not Arabs, number one. Number two, they're not Sunni, they're Shia. Number three, they're smart. Screw around with them.
That's true. Listen, we screwed around with the election in '53 with Mossadegh.
That's right.
But at some point in time, the Iranians are going to have to get over their grievances against us. Because if you keep grievances for too long, they come around and bite you.
Ask anybody in a lawsuit. Take care. Good call. All right, what we're going to do, I just see the man just walked in the door. So Casey's here, and Beth's here, and Berto's here, and Tommy will be on phone, and Mr. Crowley will be on phone. We'll play some of this that we did back many, many years ago. And Casey, the man coughing is Casey. And so turn your head. 710 KNUS Denver Talk Station. 45 the high. We're coming right back, and we'll play what we did on April Fools.
Morales Holmes. You are now listening to the Chewy and Baca Morning Show. All the way from TJ, Mexico, Chewy and Baca.
And that's what started it. Good afternoon, everybody, and people giggling in the room, and I'm sure we'll bring Tom and Mark up on the line. It is good afternoon, everyone. Saturday, April the 5th, 2025, 710 KNUS, Denver's talk station, and it's going to be 45 for a high today and 58 on Sunday. That's 10 years ago, where everybody's sitting there looking at each other going, 10 years ago. Let me bring up Mark and bring up Tommy. And, of course, the mics are hot in here. Kev's mic's hot. Casey's hot. Beth is hot. And the only person that's missing is Efron, who is working.
Yeah.
So he couldn't do the show. We had early on, when I came on here at 9 o'clock, I brought our program director on, Kelly Michaels, to talk about the scam of 10 years ago. And what he said, okay, go ahead and do it. He said he looking backward. So I'd like to go first to, let me introduce everybody. And so Kevin, it's good to see you. I love you, man. It's good to have you come. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Thank you for having me back on. It's just wonderful to see everybody again.
Now, Beth, do you want to grab your husband there? Take his microphone. Now, Beth is married to Casey, but she played out in this because we used her as we were looking for Casey, couldn't find him, and you were absolutely wonderful. You took the bait. You didn't have any problem with doing it. And then Casey, who of course was our producer for how many years did we work together?
I want to say 8.
8 years.
Yeah, I think it was 8.
And so we used you. Now let me go on the phone. Two guys that really made this work were Tom Moller and of course Mr. Crowley, Mark Crowley. So I'm going to go with Mark first. Mark, thanks, man, for doing this, and you're doing it by phone. So thanks for coming back on the show.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm really glad to be here, and I was just watching it back there a few minutes while I was waiting, and we got to send people to your website so they can actually watch the behind-the-scenes version of what was really going on. But it was something very special.
And then I want to go to this man because he is the straight. Tommy was the straight. Now, I mean, the rest of these guys are who we are. Tommy, you're the straight. You're in California. You'll be home. You're like the birds that come back after the weather changes.
Yeah, you bet.
But you made, and I've been thinking a lot about since I came up with the idea of putting everybody back together. You made this happen. Now, Roberto and Efron made it happen, and Casey and Beth made it happen, and of course Mr. Crowley made it happen. But you made it happen because of everybody involved in this. You're the straight. I mean, who was more straight than Tom?
He was it.
He's it.
Well, it was hard staying straight because Kevin and Ephraim were laughing, and I was trying to not look at them so I wouldn't crack up, and so I would do.
Hey, Tommy, let me do this. I'll put you guys up. Hold. I'm going to play Tommy during. Now, remember, this is 10 years ago, April Fools. I'm knocking off Orson Welles' Halloween night when he does the War of the Worlds, and we're doing April Fools. But I can put the guys on so they can hear. Now, this is Tommy doing the news, if you would.
El alcalde de Denver, Michael Hancock, ha vetado todo viaje, no esencial e pagado por la ciudad Indiana. Después de adoptar una ley de libertad religiosa que críticos dicen permite discriminación a gente homosexual. El uso de cámaras de cuerpo será motivado.
Then he goes on, homosexual. Bring Tommy and Mark back up. Who taught you? I mean, did you guys help him do that?
What I remember is we Google translated it because we had like 3 minutes before we went on the air.
Yeah.
and we didn't plan it. We just Google
did
translated it. Yeah, he just did it. This was raw.
Yeah. But when you did that, Tom, I shut my mic off, and I was trying to gag back one, and you're going, and you ended up saying homosexual.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself,
I didn't have a clue what I was talking about because it was written in Spanish, and so I did it trying to do it with sight reading the script that Kevin gave me, and I kept my gaze away from them because they were cracking up. I could just practically feel their laughter to the side of me, and the only way I could stay straight was to continue to,
When you look at the YouTube vid that's up on 710knus.com, thanks to Mark, you'll see us howling. I mean, Efron is falling out of the chair, and I'm looking, and now Mr. Crowley, in the meantime, you can see him walking back and forth, but we are pretending, Mark, we pretended you were locked out in the parking lot, right?
Yeah. Which is kind of the story of my life most days. But,
for the people that don't know, Mark's a career police officer, Denver cop, and you were seeing, was it black limos in the parking lot? Now, because we could play a cut for that.
I was, and you can see it in the video. There's a window to the left of where you sit into the production studio, and that's where I was actually talking on the phone, so it wouldn't, feedback and all that jazz. So I was in the next room talking, but I was talking about the fact that I was seeing a bunch of pickup trucks.
That was it.
With California tags and a bunch of youngsters out in the parking lot.
And the boys had a response, but you could not get in the building, right?
Yeah, what I said was that I swiped my card, and the security guard Bob, who's normally a pretty nice guy, told me that I wasn't going to be able to get in until 9:00 to see the boss.
And the boss was, of course, Kelly Michaels, and he was playing another guy. And
Bob Roberts.
Bob Roberts. And so he tells me this morning for the first time, Bob Roberts was a real guy that he worked for, who was the word begins with P. And so he was just channeling the real Bob Roberts because he would just blow me. I said, well, Bob, and then who was the new program director? Who was coming in? You invented a guy.
That was that was Craig DeAragon.
That's right.
Yeah, we call him Big Sexy nowadays. He lives in Kansas City and works in the Catholic Archdiocese, actually there. But
I know.
And he's a native Spanish speaker, and he came in as the program director.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Moving. So, what next cut do you want to play here to get full benefit? Adam, which one do you want to play? Hi, this is Kelly's announcement. Everybody, again, we'll put the fellas on hold so they can hear because they're online. Everybody else in the studio can hear. It's Saturday morning. I'm Peter Boyles. We're reliving 10 years ago when we pulled this one off. And this is Kelly Michaels, who was our real boss, acting as this guy. We got him? Okay, hit it.
Apparently I'm supposed to be playing this. This is from the management team. Is that this? I don't know, this guy Paco. Paco, I'm told.
Yes, we have an announcement. We need to play.
Craig was Paco.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Bob Roberts, Operations Director, Program Director for 710 KNUS, with an important announcement for 710 listeners. While we've enjoyed providing Denver and the Front Range news and talk programming for many years, the time has come to make a change and head in a different direction. This change comes after much consideration, evaluation, and research. Due to rapidly changing market conditions and competitive pressures, we feel that this change is necessary and our best option. Today, as we transition and unveil our new format, we're giving you time to say goodbye to an old friend, someone who's been a part of the Denver radio scene for many, many, many years, Peter Boyles. We thank Pete for his service and wish him our best. And today, as we launch Denver's newest radio station, we invite you to call in and say hi to Pete one last time.
Now that's Kelly, and Kelly being the other guy. It's like one more time, then you're out of here. And hey, Mark, how did we play that out? Were we saying this was the last show, or I forget what we said?
Yeah, no, that they decided that they just needed to make the transition quickly, and how often reality trails fiction, right? Well, it can literally happen that fast.
I was going to say,
they turn them that fast sometimes.
Someday
they
that
pull
might
off the Band-Aid.
Someday that might be played.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you what makes it believable is the fact that where Kevin and Ephraim were working over at Radio Luz on 1650, there was a rapid growth of Spanish-speaking evangelical Christians at that time, and so it really did make perfect sense that a radio station would flip and take advantage of that new audience.
And when I approached the guys, I think was it probably 2 days before I decided, and I'd always wanted to do this because of Wells, and I came to you to say we were going to do it. I think that's how it started. Was if I didn't have you and Ephraim, I didn't have anybody.
They made it.
Oh,
two of them made it.
These two guys and Ephraim and so how did I approach you?
I remember it was after your show, and well, first you mentioned it a couple weeks just as a joke.
Yeah.
You said, "Oh, it wouldn't be during our 6 o'clock meetings." You
Yes.
said, "Wouldn't it be cool to do this and that?" And we thought that was it. And then 2 days prior to April 1st, we were like, all right, I talked to Brian.
Yeah, I did.
Let's make it happen. And so Ephraim did a lot of the production.
Yes, he did.
And we didn't know, honestly, what we were going to do. So we just showed up, and we were like, okay, let's just let the creative juices flow, quote unquote.
No, and it did. Yeah, it did. Now, how you were missing?
We were in Winter Park.
Yeah.
We were staying in Winter Park, and what we said. Bethany called in because we got the word. We said that we got the word the night before that we were going to be out of a job, and we said that I disappeared. That I left my family.
Right.
I wasn't. Nobody knew where I was.
Crowley was security, and then Beth, you were home.
She called in.
You were at home with the kids. Here, grab the mic so we push it over a little bit.
Because I said that I couldn't get a hold of him, and because we were in Winter Park at your place, I called you. I'm like, who do I reach out to? Who are the police? Like, what do I do? He's missing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then we were saying, well, Mark, did we try to track down where Casey was, or we couldn't find Casey?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how that part of it went, but what made that so good was, in fact, that Bethany called, and she won't ever say this, but she's got an amazing theatrical background, and she can really put it on.
Thanks, Mark.
And she really played the part and just had me rolling on the floor with all of her emotion.
She was in tears. Couldn't find her husband. And
well, the funny part about that is I forgot to tell my family. So my dad and my brothers all started reaching out to me. They were like, dude, what's going on with you? And I had to call them right away. I was like, oh, no, it's an April Fool's joke.
I didn't know that part of it.
Yeah.
I didn't know that
Her
part
family started calling me.
While I'm on the phone with you guys.
Yeah, they lit me up. My dad was like irate. He's like, what are you doing? And I was like, no, it's not real.
Now, how much far back did you get to Roberto? How much did you get from people? Because you were, it would have not happened without you. That's number one. But I remember talking you into it. Of course. and he can, both he and Ephraim can do English, Spanish as you speak. I mean, they can translate as slick as you can talk. So we were taking calls, weren't we, Mark? Or Tom, were we taking
people were irate.
Yes.
Yeah, we were taking calls.
APD showed up, I remember.
Well, when the cops came, that was. As we said growing up, it's a lot of fun till the cops come. Tommy, go ahead.
Yeah, you in fact, you got a couple of calls said this is April Fool's, right? And boy, you got rid of those calls real quick. So that,
I hit the delay. They didn't exist.
That was the cuss word that day.
And that was the last call we took.
Yes.
And then you just moved along. I had just gotten back from Santa Barbara, actually, and that was part of the setup because you and Crowley were saying, I don't know. Tommy, was supposed to be in Santa Barbara, but we set it up that no, Pete, I'm sorry. I was actually in San Antonio
learning Spanish. Yes. I forgot that. And you said I wasn't in Santa Barbara. And Crowley, I think Crowley came up with this one. And he said, no, he's been in Texas learning Spanish.
Yeah.
And then he did that goofy. And and the guys are. I mean, you can go to the website 710knus.com, click on me, and see it. And everybody, you can see people walking around in the room, and we weren't streaming anything, and I could see Mark, who we were told people Mark was locked out, and Bob, the doorman, wouldn't let him in. And there were all these strange vehicles with California plates. And then you see him walk through the shot.
Yes.
He just walks through the shot. Did you tell Mrs. Crowley we were going to do this one, Marky?
Actually, I don't remember if I did or not.
I don't remember it either because she was the only person we didn't play. Tommy, we didn't bring your wife into this shenanigan either, did we?
No, we didn't. I don't remember exactly what mode she was in at the time, but she probably was, early in the morning. She'd probably still asleep at home.
But I remember Mark. There's one shot where Mark is. I think you're using your cell phone, and you can see Mark talking, but he walks through the back of the shot, and then saying, "Well, I can't get in, Peter," and he's in the shot.
Yeah. There was we had one camera on a tripod just filming you guys, and then I walked out the door because I was filming just to get some extra footage. Yes. But then I walked into that room next door so I could actually, and you can see you looking at me through the window.
Oh yeah,
as we're having the conversation.
And there's Kelly Michaels and everybody. So it's time to take a pause. Put everybody on hold. We got 2 minutes. I take it back. Play some more. Pick whatever you want to pick. Put the fellas on hold so they can hear. This is 10 years ago, as we speak.
For change, and you had a great career, but it's our time, man. We need to make some money too. We got babies to feed.
That's true. I have my 10 kids I have to feed.
10.
And, I need to save up for las tortillas, los frijoles, the little beans,
Elliot.
Yes.
You're on a radio show.
Hey, Pete, you've helped me get to work for, over a decade. I've been listening to you and following you around, and I'm going to miss you. I hope you land somewhere else. If you don't, then I just wish you the best, because you're the guy, that tells it straight, and so many other stations.
It's amazing what's happened here. This is like a different radio station this morning than it was when I left. I thought we were doing well. I was at a sales meeting. I'm just being honest. I was at a sales meeting, and they were saying, hey, revenues are up and ratings are great. And then I'm told last night, the person I'm really worried about is Casey, because he's not here. And Paco, I'm looking at their names. Paco Flores is the new program director.
Wow. So you had no idea.
Hey. Wow. I wouldn't have, I guess they're saying, they're asking me because when I got clipped at Brand X, after all those years, I got no money. They floored me, and there was no parting gifts. There was nothing. There's just you're out the door, goodbye. And I'm being told if I want any severance pay at all and some insurance coverage, I'll bring these guys in. But
hang on, everybody, as it continues.
That's funny. Me too.
Morning, everybody. Afternoon, everybody. Saturday, April 5, 2025, 710 KNUS, Denver's talk station. There we go. Merle. 45 will be the high, 58 Sunday, and 66 on Monday. We are reliving a wonderful moment, at least for us, and we're 10 years ago on April Fool's, I came up with this idea of pretending that the radio station had been seized, if you would, by a Spanish language conglomerate, and that Salem was out and they were transferring in. And so with me now is none other than, Casey and Beth Bloyer. Casey was PD, and Beth played out as looking for her husband. Tommy Moller, who did one of the great newscasts of all time, we'll talk about it. Mark Crowley, Mr. Crowley, who we're going to play here in a second, who played multiple roles in this. And, of course, Roberto is with us, Kevin is with us, and as well as Efren. We have to give salutes to Efren. Mm-hmm. So from that show that day, Mark, this is you. This is you on the cut next. This is Mark Crowley. Now, he's here with us. He was down the hall so we couldn't see him, so the phone wouldn't bleed. Adam, if you would, play Mark. Mark, where the hell are you?
Well, I'm out in the parking lot. I tried to get in, and my car's not working. Bob, the security guard down here, says I'm not allowed in the building until 9 o'clock.
Mark,
I don't know what's there's all these pickup trucks outside here. They got California tags. There's a bunch of kids in the parking lot. I can't get in. What is going on down there? I tried to call Casey. I can't find him anywhere.
Well, Beth called. I mean,
what?
Wait a minute. Let me reset this. Casey apparently got let go at midnight last night. And
no, what?
Casey's gone. But they're in Winter Park. We arranged his spring break. He's a hard-working kid, and Beth called Casey's wife. Casey, they can't find Casey.
Man, that's a great way to ruin a vacation.
And you can't get in the building?
No, I can't get in. I can't update the computer. I was listening to the news a minute ago. What was that newscast about?
Tommy went to California. Remember, I thought he was in Santa Barbara. He went to Texas.
Texas?
I'm telling you, Mark, you can't get in the building.
No, I can't get in.
Well, there's guys here.
I can come in at 9 o'clock to see the boss.
There's guys here. There's a couple of, I don't know who these guys are, and then this guy Paco, and then another guy Frank Lopez, and then this Bob Roberts is a
Who's this Bob Roberts guy? I just heard that when I was on hold.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, I was told all this stuff.
Well, I was lucky to get in because they can't screen this line, so I was.
No, they can. I know your ID when you call.
Wow.
All right, let me ask these guys. Stay with me. All right, who are you?
Well, first of all, good morning. What up, D-Town baby boys?
Yeah, what up? What's going up, people?
This is it.
Buenos dias, Denver.
Buenos dias, desde Mexico, Tijuana. I am Jesus Chuy Rodriguez, a.k.a. the Chupacabras, and on my left, I got the one and only...
I'm Baca, and I like tacos. I'm Baca, and I like tacos. Tacos.
This is talk radio, you too?
Yes, it is.
We need a little change, man.
This is, yeah.
Who's this? Is it? Did you?
This homeboy. This is Paco right here. That was a homie.
Mark, do you know anything at all about that?
No. I just come in like I normally do, swipe my card on the door,
and it wouldn't let you
Bob,
in.
The security guard,
the guy
says,
downstairs.
Sorry, sir, you can't come in.
The guy said to me, he said, "Don't try your card." Now, the guy, and then there's in this building, we have a security building, and the guy says to me, "Don't try your card, Mr. Boyles." And I'm okay. I thought the guy's opening the door.
Mr. Boyles. It's always been, hey Pete, what's going on?
Now, how you doing? And he looked weird, and I come in here, and Casey's not here. I don't know where the boy is, and he got fired apparently last night. They let him go at midnight, and he's finally got a vacation.
Yeah, they give him a couple days off, and this is what he gets.
They bombed him, and I don't know where Kelly Michaels is. I haven't heard from Brian Taylor. I haven't heard from John Baggett. Have you heard from any of these guys?
No. I saw him yesterday at that meeting, but and nobody let on anything.
How about Tommy going to California, coming back like that?
Yeah, I thought he was in Santa Barbara all this time.
And now we got these guys.
New generation, man.
Now, fellas, I'm going to ask you a question. I mean, I'm told. Here's my email. Due to ratings and revenue, Mark, look at this. It said, I thought we were really doing well financially.
Yeah.
And we were.
It's time. It's time. We're taking back. First of all, I want to say I want to thank Salem, but what's up with your parking lot? My cousin couldn't park. So just want to let you know, we need to expand the parking lot. We got people coming.
Yeah, I got some of my aunts coming in.
Saludos,
too.
tía.
Yeah.
Saludos,
a la
tía. Las
familia.
enchiladas allá que están buenas también.
Sí.
¿Ya almorzaste, mi
Yeah,
chavo?
they're bringing that
Eso es
bread
todo, hermano.
this morning. Yeah, ya sabes.
Eso es todo, ya se armó. That's what's up. It is what it is, man.
See, and one of the things that the email said, you didn't get a chance to say goodbye when they fired you at Clear Channel. And they're saying, we're going to be decent and let Denver say goodbye. I said, say goodbye?
Yeah, like Boys to Men, you get your special.
Boys to Men. So what do you guys... Mark,
I don't know.
Can you get in here?
I don't know. I'm gonna hang up. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna go see if I can't sweet talk Bob a little bit and see if he can let me in, and I'll try to get up there and help you out and see what's going on. I mean, I can't even get into updating the website.
And we got. Let me try this. They're gonna let me say goodbye, I guess. Hey, Bob, you're on a radio show.
Oh, Mr. Boyles.
I'm serious, man. I mean, really, these guys. You should see this place now. I mean, this is not the job I came on to. Remember, I got fired in July of a year ago. And they're
I'll tell you, wherever you go, you're going to have a following like no tomorrow.
I don't know what. You guys are what? L.A. from L.A. Where are you from?
TJ, which is it's pretty much the same, Holmes. It's just a few minutes away, Holmes.
We're here in Denver.
No, these guys, I'm telling you should see. I mean, I came in here this morning. Crowley can't get in the building, and the kid's gone. Tommy's reading news in some kind of Spanish, and there's guys I've never seen before here.
Well,
and I got these. I mean, these seem like nice enough young guys. Are you guys legal?
Yeah, we have some kind of ID. Yeah.
Seriously.
Kind of ID. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
It's legal.
When your feet get back on the ground, as soon as you get a hold of things, just think about this. If they could stick a full bird colonel away for 6 months for just asking for a piece of paper, what they're doing to use nothing.
I'm telling you, I got calls, and none of the bosses are taking calls. And there's new guy. There's some guy here, and this is a stone cold radio named Bob Roberts. This guy's probably Frankie Yankovic or something under the name of it. And he's like this guy, and he's got a suit on, and he's the guy. All right, man, listen, I'm going to move on this. Would you play that Bob Roberts guy again? And then what do you guys want? You guys play music? I'm sorry.
It's a music show, man. So from everything from our roots, we got everything, man. We got waking up in the morning music. We got.
You can't get. This is your gig tomorrow.
Yeah,
this is our gig. And we thank you. I mean, we've done some research on you, and we appreciate what you've done for the industry.
You're a living legend, Holmes.
You are a living legend, bro.
But it's our time now.
Let me tell everybody what's happened. Casey apparently was let go at midnight. Crowley's not in the building. I don't know anybody, these guys. What Crowley said, and this is what the new morning show, and I can say goodbye, right? That's it.
You may, yes.
That's special, man.
The people deserve respect.
Because of the revenue part. I mean, this thing that says I've not made them any money. I know I made the money.
Yeah, man.
But they're saying not enough money, and the numbers are bad.
But think about this, and with all due respect, Mr. Boyles, I'm sure you made enough money that you saved enough money for a little bit. You'll be okay.
You can retire,
A couple of marriages, boys.
Oh, we don't mind. We can talk about our personal stuff. It's out in the public, so it's all good. Shout out to the baby girls and little puppy. What's up, man?
For real.
Yeah.
Samuel, I'm getting a chance to say goodbye here, Samuel.
Hey, man. What's up, Gringo? What's going on, buddy?
I'm out, home. I'm out.
What do they got? Pinatas hanging up in the radio room there, and the kids.
No, actually, I mean the place looks like it looked. It's I don't know what these. I mean, I have no idea. I mean, I know.
They all came in pickup loads. Now they came in pickup loads and took over the station.
I didn't know I mean, I get here at 3:30, but Crowley's outside, and he said there's A lot of, because usually, your parking lot in the morning, Mark says there's unbelievable amount of cars that he's never seen before out there.
All pickups, man. Pickups.
Well, wherever you go, Pete, just let us know. We'll follow you, man, because this station 710, they don't have no signal anyway, so maybe the next station brings the signal to it. You know what? I can hit it in Wyoming.
Oh. You know what? We can. We actually work for Extra in TJ, and we used to bleed into Los Angeles. So back in the day, so we can figure it out.
That right on, bro.
All right. Let's pull it here. Let's stop right here. Bring up Mark. Bring up Tommy. That was again part of the morning that went on and on and on, and we somehow pulled it off. April Fools, but it was 10 years ago, and everybody that was part of that is sitting in the studio or on phone with us now. Now, a name turned up, Frank Lopez, and used to call me Frank Lopez, and it comes from Scarface.
Yep.
And it was Lopez Motors, and that's where the real, the big time dope dealer was Frank Lopez.
Yep.
And so the fellows, for everybody in the audience, used to call me Frank Lopez, and so we brought up. And I thought, God, I'd forgotten we had Frank Lopez.
Well, and this all stems from our 6 o'clock meetings. So each morning we go live at 5, but then after the first hour, every radio show that was on with Kevin and then with the Spanish speaking, and then later with Bill when he was with the Money Show, we all would just meet for like 10 minutes and all just catch up. And this kind of the genesis came from out of that.
And Mark was that, and I think Tommy, although Tommy, you were running the Christian AM as well at the time, were you not?
Yes, I was. I would start the first half hour with your show, and then I would move across to the Christian show the rest of the morning.
Okay, so how many news? You just did one cast with me early in the morning.
I did one cast with you and then kibitzed with you for about the first half hour.
That was our show. And then everybody came in, and everybody was part of it. Mark, everybody came in, and it was like a jump ball show, and that's what they're really called.
And right before we'd go on the air, Tom, what was my words of encouragement for you?
Don't screw up.
Every morning, every morning, and then Mark, you during all of this. And because it really does sound like the way you edged your phone, that it really did sound like you were outside. And of course, one of the great ones when you watch the YouTube, you can see it. Go to 710knus.com, click on me, and you can see the show. You see Crowley walking through the shot. I mean, that's like hilarious. What is your memory, Mark, of this that really stands out among all the craziness?
Well, I think your reference to War of the Worlds really kind of says it all, because radio is truly that. It's a theater of the mind, and you watch it all, and that's why it's so great to be able to watch it on YouTube, not as it was happening, but as we were watching the back end of it happening. And so you can really see that cast of characters and how people have to play different parts and make it all happen. But everybody was just dead set in character, and they just made it go so great. And poor Tom sitting there trying to get through that newscast with 3 guys looking at him. It was all he could do to keep a straight face, until it came to homosexual.
And I wasn't sure, and I thought, because I didn't know how Tom was going to handle it, and he put it over. And how close are we to a pause, Adam? 2.5 minutes. Tommy, what was going on with you during that idea of coming in and doing that cast? Because that made the show.
Actually, I literally did just get back from vacation in Santa Barbara, and you had said that this is, what we're doing, and I went over to Roberto and I said, "Can you write something in Spanish for me? I gotta do a straight newscast," as if I was sneaking off to San Antonio learning Spanish, and the way it developed, and I think it kind of more or less developed on the air, that that I had betrayed you, and you were fired, but I knew it was coming.
And you were going to stay. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and I was staying. Yeah, so that's how it developed. But it was all kind of biff bam. I just got back from Santa Barbara, and here we were.
When we come back from the pause, what I want to do is replay. It was the highlight, Tommy's newscast, and we'll play that back for everybody again, because when he's like he goes along, I have no idea what he's saying. Then he goes homosexual.
It was in the script.
Did you write that?
Oh, well, that was like I said, I Google translated it.
Okay.
Since we had like 3 minutes left before the air. So
that was hilarious.
Yeah, so it was.
I mean, that was the one time I just really held my nose and ears and just letting the water. When the water comes up through your nose.
Oh yeah.
I hit that on that, and then
I had a friend, a high school friend that I grew up with. He watched the video. He said she laughed so hard she was in tears.
We'll start back down. All right, let's take a turn around. Everybody's on hold. Casey and Beth and Tommy Moller and Roberto and me and Mr. Crowley, and we don't have Efron here who made the whole thing work. Stand by. 710 KNUS. 710 KNUS. 710 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles. It's a good afternoon show, but it's a good show. Saturday, April 5, 2025, 710 KNUS. 45 will be the high today. It's cold outside. This is 10 years ago, actually on Monday, when we did an April Fool's surprise on the city of Denver. And what I wanted to do with Tom Moller is play Muller's newscast on that morning when we said Spanish language had taken over. Adam, if you would.
El alcalde de Denver, Michael Hancock, ha vetado todo viaje no esencial e pagado por la ciudad Indiana. Después de adoptar una ley de libertad religiosa que críticos dicen permite discriminación a gente homosexual. El uso de cámaras de cuerpo será motivados para los oficiales de la en Colorado si la aprobación por medio de los legisladores consideran varias factores.
Tommy, you made that entire morning work. So with us now, Casey and Beth, and of course Tommy Moller on the line. Roberto, Mr. Crowley's outside; he can't get in.
Still outside.
And we're talking about. So, Mark, when did the cops come?
I think it was. We were probably about 30 minutes into it when they showed up, and you know, a lot of guys from departments all over the place, but Aurora in particular, because that's where we're located, are listening, and they just didn't know what to think. You know, there was half a dozen cars showed up, and they're like, "What is going on?" So, the building had just opened. You know, normally, you know, the doors automatically unlock at some point. So it must have been. It had to have been right around half an hour into it, because I don't know exactly. I can't remember how long it went, but they definitely showed up.
I remember, was it the three of us went out in the hallway, and they had helmets on. They had on the white police helmets. Was it? Oh yeah, Case.
No, because I wasn't here. We were actually in Winter Park.
Okay, you were there. Were you with me when we went out and talked? Or
no,
was
I just remember you went out with Mark.
Okay.
And you said APD is here.
Yeah.
So that's why, you know.
And we revealed the last hour, Mark. We revealed it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but those were the reason they weren't in riot gear or anything. They were a bunch of traffic officers on motorcycles. The group that we were talking to.
Yeah, they came upstairs. I remember
they did.
They were up here with us, and
yep.
And I'm thinking to myself, like that moment that Wells wrote about later, when the network owners, the people who owned it, confronted Wells, and then Wells had to confront the press, and everybody thought, "Oh, we got you," and Wells said, "No, I won," you know, because I had done my job so well, and he did much better than we did. But we were humor. I think we were. Tommy, do you think we were trying to make this humorous? And Wells, of course, was making it serious.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. This was good humor. I love doing it, and it's wonderful to kind of relive it here with the cast.
Yeah. And what happened?
You know, there is some talk that Tom Moller was around for War of the Worlds, but I'm not
sure. Tommy was Grover's Mills in New Jersey, and something's moving out there. But if you listen to what, and it still holds up, if you listen to what Wells did on Halloween, and then in the end, Wells came and said, "This is our way of jumping out behind a bush and saying boo." Those were his words. Well, too late.
Yeah.
And I don't think we caused any damage.
I still get people that come up to me when I'm out and about, and they'll bring up this show, and they bring up this show, and they bring up the Halloween shows, and then of course the Thanksgiving Day parade. Mm-hmm. These three are the ones that everybody brings up to me.
Marky, you remember when we would go on the Halloween trips?
Ugh.
Oh yeah, our time there at we did the Phipps Mansion at one time, or Grant Humphrey's Mansion, I guess it was, and then a couple down at the Melting Pot were just so exciting.
You remember it?
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Well, no. When Tom Martino came and sat in with us, and
I went to the first one at the Melting Pot. Mm-hmm. We talked to that manager, and he talked about how he went to the restroom and all the manual flushes flushed on him, and then the lights went out.
Yeah.
That's the last one I went on. I was like, "Oh man, the studio. I'm not going anymore."
I couldn't talk him into going.
Nope.
Crowley, on the other hand, Marky, you were always up for those, weren't you?
Oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. There's a long line of those stories that stretched back to Cahow when I had the idea of. And the first one I went on my own, and I slept in a haunted place upstairs on my own. And then everybody wanted to go. And that really brings in Daryl Luby and Kenny Danon, and then Mark. And even in the end, Kenny and those guys came. They worked the job with us.
Yeah.
And those were some of the most fun shows ever. And then people wanted to, eventually so many people wanted to go that I sold it. And I said, if you want, and we gave the money to Bob Cote at Step 13.
Yep.
And I forget how much we charged. Did we charge $100 a couple or something? And
yeah, I can't remember.
We gave them the money. And then the night, there's a night that none of you guys had anything to do with, that is probably the all-time night. I had not one but two paranormal investigative teams with me, without realizing they hated each other. And we were sleeping in a library, and it was my daughter and some woman that she worked with, and all of us, we had the library, and it was the Hollenbach was the Sheik. Sheik said, boss, and I said, wait, and he said, they're into it. We were, wait a minute, and we had to ask someone to leave, and that was a great night. But all in all, I mean, even at this end of the trail, it's you guys and Tom and Mark and Kevin and Casey and Beth. I'll never be able to thank you enough. That really made, and people will talk about this. Modestly, he says, people will talk about this show that we pulled off as a show that really got pulled off.
And most people got the humor on it. Yeah. We still had a couple that would emailed in were not happy. Yeah. They did not find us funny.
Mark, remember that, Mark? There were people that were quite upset that we would do this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, that even happens today. I mean, even this week when Jeff was talking about going to the Rockies opening day, how come you're not talking about the stock market?
Oh, yeah. But, hey, Tommy, how do you respond to that as a veteran of this business when someone says, I don't like what you did on the air? Then you say...
I say tough.
Yeah. That's all you can say.
Yeah.
Yeah. All you can say is... So, hopefully, and plug, in a week from today, and with Adam on the other side of the wall, there's a book, you guys, entitled Chaos. I can't put it down. About the Manson family... And there's new stuff on the Manson family. And was there a tie-in between Charlie Manson and the CIA? And it is just this remarkable book. There's a series on Netflix about it. But I would urge you to read the book before we take a look at the Netflix things. But hopefully, Adam, we can have that guy with us next Saturday. And he's got to be 3 hours. He's got to be an epic show.
Those are always my favorite, Adam, when you hit up a book author. Hey, we want you for 3 hours. Well, I can't do 3 hours. Trust me, you're going to want to. And then after the first hour, they're like, okay, I'll stay for the next 2 hours.
Every time.
I leave you with my favorite Casey story. I come over to take the show, first day. Casey said, I'm going the afternoons. I'm gonna jump across. I'll stay here with you today, but I'm going to take the afternoon show. I said, all right, man, that's cool. Show's over.
I'm staying here.
He said, I'm staying here.
I know where the juice was.
He said, I'm staying here with you. To Mr. Crowley, who's done so much, to Tom Moller, who was like, we ran together, and to this young man sitting across from me, Kevin, I think the world of you. And Efron, I wish Efron were here. And you know who else? Don. I wish Don were here.
Yeah.
And we need a breakfast. We need a breakfast.
You bet, Peter, dude.
And
Exactly.
And we need to take Don. Marky, thanks. Tom, thanks. Thank you, son. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Kevin, thanks, everybody. All right, everybody. Thanks, Adam, for doing all the hard work. I'll see you next Saturday morning at 9 a.m. We'll do it again.